Okay, Mr. Shelton, if we could have an overview on the addendum, please, and the reasons for adding these items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the audience and new members of council.
Mr. Shelton,
Okay. As per the our bylaw, 15 minutes before the Committee of the Whole and Council meeting, the CAO sets out any addendum items that are being put before Council so that they have the opportunity to know what they are, why they're here, when they do the vote in terms of adding them to the agenda. So we do have a number of items. First one is an item that relates to an item that is on the agenda, and that's item 2, dealing with the Customer Service Information Report 2014-31. The next item is a resident wishes to address committee regarding the user fee and charges for water and wastewater rates, and that's related to item 6, so that is timely. The next one is also a resident that wishes to address committee regarding the 2015 schedule of meetings, and again that is a timely item to be for that deputation. And then the the next item is Joint Development and Infrastructure Services, Engineering Services, Corporate Services Report, ES 2014-60, regarding the Tom Taylor Trail on the west side of Ferry Lake, and it is time sensitive. It has to do with the project and a budget. And then we have another deputation which is in addition to the 2 on the agenda, and it is from Mr. Chris Howie regarding outdoor skating rinks, and it then is related to item 12. In addition, what has been handed out are attachments A and B and Appendix C to item 19 to Corporate Services Report 2014-21. And it deals with councillor appointments to committees and the committee structure review, which were distributed by email this morning. And there is also one administrative correction in there. I think Councillor Hempen was identified as a member of the Viva Next strategy group, and that's not the case, so that has been corrected. Yes, just on that, on the strategy group, the Viva Next strategy group, any member of council can attend any of those meetings in any case. So are there any questions on the addendum items and why they are here before you? Thank you.
if I could have everyone just kind of sign in on their little red button, sign on and off, and we'll see if everybody's here, and that we've got this up high enough. Yep. Okay. It's good. Still got about 5 minutes. Gives me time to turn off my BlackBerry.
Yeah. I guess you guys must be asked to go to just about everything. Community, personal, yeah.
I got 3.
You can come by the church on Saturday.
What's more interesting though is I've emailed her and I'd like to speak to somebody urgently and she hasn't responded back.
It's not the personality, John. It's the office.
Well, no, I think it's the conversation is avoiding me.
Yeah.
Hope not.
No. one.
But it must be similar, the application must be similar in terms of your region or your hospital. How is the experience? I'm curious.
The only thing that I'm noticing is the landscape stuff.
Right.
So you got to find a way to turn the landscape so you can read it.
Yeah, you want a little bit larger font.
Well, I can do that by just, the
Yeah,
larger font.
yeah.
But the landscape,
Yeah,
the
the
landscape goes,
orientation.
the orientation, it goes across. I
More helpful.
would show you, I'd show
Do
you.
you use a keyboard with it? Just curious.
Not yet.
Okay.
I think they're going to have a keyboard, so
Yeah.
that'll leave you more space right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the cover and keyboard coordination is what's going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we got up here now? What's that back there? Is that one of our?
That's a intern.
Okay. Okay.
Kevin.
Okay.
Hard to keep up there. But
Well, and even at the when I had a look at the
Christmas card.
yeah, and the town hall, you
Yeah.
really see quite a
It's quite
transition.
huge, and
Yeah.
then a lot of different faces.
Yeah. So you've got one of those things there that we'll deal with. I'll just try and work with these here.
And I have the list, number of times people speaking between the two.
Okay. We got a new list.
Yeah. So if you wish.
Synchronize my download? I've never had the issue. Oh, did it?
Who we got? Oh, Steve there? It's not Steve Bloom Plumley, is it? I guess it is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Recorded votes are only council, right?
Correct.
That's right. How bad?
On number 2 here, I was just going to do a like a 20-second intro of audio.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. I'll turn the.
So 1:30, sir.
It is 1:30.
Yeah.
Let me turn on my mic. Good. Okay, I'll call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. Members of Council, you do have an addendum before you. Could I have a motion, please, to modify the agenda to include the additions on the agenda? Councillor Bazans, Councillor Sponga. All those in favor? That is carried. Now that we've determined the agenda, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Being none, we'll go forward then. We'll start with our deputations. We have 3 deputations. Our first deputation is Mr. Blamenstein, who wishes to address.
Mr. Paul Joey.
Mr.
Joey
Jolie?
was the first time.
Oh, sorry, okay. I was going to wait for Mr. Jolie, because we could deal with that with the water rates then, okay? This one is only related to the schedule.
Okay.
So I'll have Mr. Blamenstein come forward, please. You have 5 minutes, sir?
Yeah, thank you. I thought the presentation was actually interesting.
I don't have water. Is this yours? Is this yours or mine? It's ours. Okay.
Katie? Turn the mic on.
Go ahead, please.
And it's just the right click of the mouse?
Okay.
Good afternoon. The reason I'm speaking to you today, a full week after the fact that the schedule of meetings has been already ratified by council, is that I was blocked from speaking last week by staff. Staff advised me that last week's council meeting was purely ceremonial. It wasn't. Here's the real business that you voted on and approved unanimously. You missed an opportunity for public feedback because I was barred from speaking. I asked a number of staff members to advise me what provision under the town's code of conduct, town's procedural bylaw was referenced to block my deputation last week, and no one provided me with an answer. But I do contend that any item on council's agenda merits serious consideration by council members, and it was wrong for staff to refuse public input. In fact, many of you spoke about public input in your inaugural speeches, so I know that you must agree with me that blocking my deputation was wrong. Which leads me to another question that I asked staff, and no one would provide an answer to. If I were to violate a bylaw as a member of the public, there would be consequences in the form of a fine or some other monetary penalty. Staff has not been able to provide provision under the procedural bylaw to back up their decision to block my deputation. Staff is accountable to this council, so I'm asking you to look into this matter and to advise if there are any consequences for blocking my previous deputation request. So here's the presentation that I would have presented last week. Here's the schedule that you agreed to. And I questioned the clerk why the COW was split into two parts. One part prior to orientation and the second part after orientation. I've copied the clerk's answer on this particular slide. And quite frankly, I agree with him. I also believe that orientation is very important. Not for the 7 returning members of this council, because they're already familiar with the issues, but for the 2 new members of council who have quite a steep learning curve ahead of them. Here are the items that you're asked to approve today without the context of orientation. All of these items require context, and I've read the reports and find that certain pertinent information is missing in those reports. For example, on water rates. You're being asked to raise water rates today by 5.71%. What has been the trend for water rates increases over the past 4 years? Why did York Region raise its rates? Oops, it's not clicking. Oh, okay. Another question that I've not answered in this report, it concerns the internal loan provided to the LED lighting project that was funded from water infrastructure reserves. This internal loan was supposed to pay interest in the range of 3.5%. If staff is asking for almost 6% now, are they conceding that the internal loan was a mistake? After all, one of the drivers for this rate increase, according to staff, is to build up reserves. The staff report does not link to another recent report provided by Peter Nohammer. The town is flushed the hydrants of chloroform residue back in 2012, and plans are underway for a repeating of this procedure. An open fire hydrant can expel 225 liters of water per minute. If the staff should be able to provide council with the amount of money this flushing will cost us. To my point, why is orientation necessary for certain issues, but something as important and as life-giving as water, the 2 new councillors are not provided with basic context? What does it again? Oh, sorry about that. Here are the COW items required for that staff decided required orientation for next week. Then you're being asked to ratify what you decided just 2 hours after the council meeting on next Monday, just after the COW meeting on Monday. There have been no explanation why there is a rush to ratify. Why is there no cooling off period to allow council members the option to change their minds regarding the budget or the in-camera items? Why is staff refusing to allow council members to seek their own legal advice on whatever was discussed in camera? Seeking legal advice may seem like a small point without context, but consider what the OMB written decision said about what the town failed to do to prevent the Glenway development, and seriousness of your decision next Monday is amplified. So why are the new councillors not being able to give the time they need to make sure that they're making the right decisions? Although it's too late now to change anything, here's what I believe the schedule should have looked like for this next council, for this month in council. I remind you that town offices are still open on December 22nd, and it's the schedule that makes the most sense, at least to me. I've asked staff for a more appropriate schedule, why a more appropriate schedule wasn't considered, and did not receive a response that satisfied my curiosity. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Are there any questions or clarification? Being none, then, I'll have a motion to receive.
Just pop it out.
Yep, of clarification of the deputy. Okay. So motion to receive, Councillor Begg, seconded by Councillor Twinney. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Regional Councillor.
We could just have staff make one comment, please, just because when we're dealing with water safety issues and the public hearing the presentation, if they could just make comment on the assertion that there was chloroform in the water. Just want to, I believe that's not what we're
Mr.
dealing with.
Millhammer?
I'm fairly certain that's not what we're dealing with. That's certainly an important matter to get right.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Last month, I issued a email to members of council indicating the need to undertake flushing of the water system to increase the residual chloramine levels in the water, not chloroform or any other type of chemical. It's chloramine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we will be reviewing our procedural bylaw early next year to fine-tune some of those items, and the orientation issues can be dealt with on an individual basis as is deemed prudent by the new members of council. So we'll turn to that. Our next deputation then is Mr. Councillor Kerwin.
Just for all our benefit, I believe through our Commissioner, Peter Neuhammer, that sooner or later, either at Committee of the Whole or even full council, Bill Wilson should be asked to come forward to explain publicly on television our water system, the complications of the water system, and what lines are in the ground, and why at times it's necessary to do flushing, and the type of water lines that are in the ground. And I think that would be really of help to all the council. And I've been a benefit. Normally once a year I go to the Georgian Bay Water Conference that's held up in Huntsville or other parts throughout the province. But water and wastewater and stormwater management are going to be crucial in the next few years. But Bill Wilson is on duty 24/7. That means he has a pager. He's on 24/7, 365 days of the year. He's born in Newmarket. This man is so talented. We're lucky to keep him here. So I would like him to come forward at a Committee of the Whole meeting, and it's a suggestion.
I'll have Mr. Shelton address that. I believe that is part of the orientation program. Yep, the outline. Yep. Sure, Mr. Shelton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a session set up. I don't have the exact date, but it's in the first quarter of the new year as part of the orientation to provide council members with a full briefing on the water system. In addition to that, we do have a lawyer that will be setting out the legal framework of all of the various legislative requirements that council and staff members are subject to, and that does include water, and that takes place on Wednesday morning. And the orientation program, Anita will be speaking to as part of report number 1, which started prior to the inaugural, and Anita can flesh that out when we get to that item.
Okay. Councillor Kerwin?
Just one other comment on that, so all our members are familiar and the audience is familiar, is that after Walkerton, the province passed legislation that the bottom line with safe water rests with the 9 members of this council. If we don't deliver safe water, all of us can be sued. So that's just a heads up for you, that this council, these 9 people sitting here, are the bottom line. It's not staff, it's not directors, it's not commissioners, it's the councillors who are sitting around this table who are liable if something goes wrong with the water system.
Yep. Thank you. And again, the orientation program will outline the due diligence that's expected of this council. Thank you very much. Okay. What I'd like to do now then is to take a look at the consent items. Are there any items that members of council wish to deal with separately? And what I'll do is I think item number 12 is an action item. Item number 6, because we have a deputation, we'll deal with item number 6 separately. Any other items that we should be dealing with separately? Councillor Twinney?
Number 8, please.
Number 8. Planning fees. Okay. Councillor Sponga?
7, 20, and 23.
Number number 7,
7, 20,
20,
and
and
23.
23.
No, unfortunately, I'm going by the e-agenda, so I'm not sure if those correspond to hard copy. I'm going to look at Chris Ann for that. They do? Okay, thank you.
So item number,
Mr. Mayor, the item 20,
that was the
23
deputation.
on Councillor Spongas is item 21 on the printed agenda. It's regarding joint engineering procurement. Is that
Okay.
correct, Councillor?
Yeah, regarding
For
the...
lake-to-lake route?
Correct.
Okay. Yep. Item number 20 has been dealt with in the deputations. Any other items? Regional Councillor.
11, please.
Item number 11, interim appropriations. Any other items? Councillor Sponka.
Just clarification, did you say that item 20 was dealt with under the deputation?
Item on the hard copy of the agenda, item
Oh,
number
on the
20
hard
was the
copy.
deputation.
Okay, and what is number 20 then in the hard copy? It's
On your e-copy?
the customer service information, yeah.
Okay. The customer service information is 2A under the addendum.
Sorry.
So we've got 2 and 2A that we'll deal with when we hear the presentations. Okay, could I then have a motion to adopt all items with the exception of number 7, 8, sorry. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
6, 7, 8, 11, 12, and 2A.
2A. So that's items number 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, and 2A, and item number 21. So can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Kerwin, seconded by Councillor Vague. All those in favor? That is carried. Because we do have a deputation with respect to item number 6, I wonder if we should deal with the deputation and item number 6. Bring item number 6 forward and 6A. So what we'll do first then is we'll hear from our deputant. And that is Mr. Paul Joly. Mr. Joly, if you could come forward, please. Okay, we permit up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to address you here at council. Apparently this is Water Day. I'm here today to provide my thoughts on the proposed water charges for 2015, which is consent item 6 in today's agenda. I would once again like to express my disappointment with the manner to which we charge residents for their water use. Over the past 3 years, we have been advised the average user should see a 10% increase in their rates. Yet over the same 3-year period, my rates have gone up 16% a year. And this has occurred because of the heavy weighting of the fixed charge of $28 tacked on to the actual water consumed. And this charge has doubled in 3 years. And this was shown in detail in my last report. Today you're being asked to approve new rates as per Schedule A in the Corporate Services Report. In my deputation of April 7, I advised that my water use appeared to be only 1/3 of what you suggested was a new market average of 250 cubic meters a year. Imagine my surprise then to see that you are now stating the average household uses 200 cubic meters, a reduction of 20% in 1 year. Suddenly I don't feel quite the outlier that I had imagined. I also noticed that you have restated the numbers for the current year, where you predicted an average water bill this year, 2014, of $1,059 has now been restated to $914, a reduction of $144, or 15% per household. I could not find a reason for this change in the report. I'm beginning to think that the numbers stated for average bill are very fluid indeed. in my house, it looks like my water consumption will be about the same as last year, but costs are up over 10%. Your report provides a chart showing water rate cost comparisons where we are rated as second highest in the region, ahead of East Gwillimbury. The chart does not show what towns are including a fixed charge as part of their water bill. I did a quick search and found only 2 towns in this grouping, Newmarket at $288 a year, and East Gwillimbury $336 a year. I did note that Aurora has a token charge of $4 a month. I'm not here to argue whether rates are high or low, but under guiding principles in this report, you advise that rates should reflect each customer's fair share of the cost to provide the water. Well, there is nothing fair when those who conserve water have seen their bills go up at a faster rate than those who choose to leave the taps on. You are recommending that we maintain a fixed rate of $28 per month with a targeted fixed rate of 33% of the residential bill to ensure fairness and equity. This year, the fixed portion of my bill comes out around 52%. How many years will it be before I see fairness and equity? Now, you need to ensure sufficient funds on hand to address future costs associated with maintenance of the water infrastructure. I suggest that if using a guide of fairness and equity, there should be no fixed rates. But then it hit me. You have stated that a charge of 33% would be ideal and addresses fairness and equity. Could we not simply apply a separate line item equal to 33% of your current water consumption charge? In other words, your monthly bill would include a charge that would float based on that month's water usage. This would also address the problem of trying to create a one-size-fits-all number that we have now. I've provided you with a copy of an editorial from the Toronto Star, dated June 19th, concerning flat fees for electricity. They quote from the Green Energy Coalition that fixed charges increase the bills of those who work hard to conserve energy while charging less to big users. It's Robin Hood in reverse. You need only change the utility from Toronto Hydro to Newmarket Water to make the same argument here. They also note that utilities have been able to operate for 100 years without a 100% guaranteed revenue stream. Those who have adopted the idea that natural resources need to be conserved for future generations should not be penalized in the name of risk mitigation. The best tool we have to encourage conservation is pricing. A flat monthly fee is not in the best interest of our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions of clarification to the deputant? Councillor Sponga.
Good to see you, Paul. Good to see you, Paul. Good to see you. I've got a question for you. If I understand right, what you're asking is it possible to tie the fixed costs to the consumption rates? So the more you use, the more the fixed costs go up. Is that correct?
It's a floating fixed.
Okay. In fairness, I believe that the article also does recognize that perhaps a fixed rate to support the infrastructure is understandable. I think they're looking for something else to penalize the bigger users. What I'm going to ask you is, I wanted some clarification on, is we've seen a 40% reduction in water usage in the town of Newmarket. That's in consumption use. If that trend continues, would you then, it's not like we can divest ourselves of the capital of the pipes, and the maintenance of the pipes has to be upkept. And this is one of the reasons why we are constantly flushing. Where are you suggesting that difference, because that difference is going to occur as consumption continues to decline, is going to come from in order to maintain the service levels that the pipes require and the costs that are associated with it?
Well, I think we agree that I suspect water consumption is going to go down and water rates are going to go up, and that's just a fact. And that's not what I'm here to argue against. But all I'm saying is, to be blunt, let the user pay.
But I'd love to sit down with you and have a discussion on how those fluctuating fixed costs what the effect would be in the long term if the consumption continues to decrease. I have a suspicion that it would end up somehow in the tax base somewhere down the line. But having said that, if there's no other questions, I'll-
Okay, thank you. Motion to receive that, or Councillor Hempen, or did you want to speak? Okay. Yep. Did you have a question for the deputy?
No,
or were you
staff
moving?
question.
Okay. Okay, questions to the deputy first, please.
Thanks.
Appreciate it,
Yeah,
Councillor.
so you raise a lot of interesting points, and it is definitely a bit of a complex topic. I guess I'm curious, and I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily, but I'm curious what you would say to this. As an analogy, if the cost of delivering a newspaper to my house was $10, but only $1 or $2, for example, was the cost of printing and producing it, but $8 was the cost of the person coming and bringing it to me. And if I only had one page of the paper delivered to me and everybody else had 10, should I only pay 1/10 of the cost, like the actual total cost?
We do this with just about everything else we buy. And I don't know about your analogy, but if I go to the gas station, I pay for the amount of gas I buy, regardless of how much it costs them to bring it to the gas pump from oil wells in Alberta. I pay, if I want 1 gallon, I pay for 1 gallon. I don't pay a lump sum plus a gallon of gas. So, and it doesn't matter what type of thing I buy. Generally, I pay for what I purchase. So, and the cost of delivering it is built into the price. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Twinney? Questions? Okay. Right. Could I have a motion? Okay, motion to receive the deputation. Councillor Sponga? Okay, Councillor Hempen. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you, Mr. Jolly. Okay, Councillor Hempen, I believe, has a question to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to maybe our director of, Mr. Mays. Can you explain to us, there is a cost of providing water in the system to provide it to each household. And I'm looking for the number, if you have it, or approximate number, of what we spend as a town per year to operate and replace the necessary infrastructure to deliver that water.
Mr. Mays?
We had a bit of a discussion the other day about it, and it was a significant number.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I understand the question correctly, you'd like to know, for instance, what we're contributing to asset replacement fund on an annual basis?
Yes.
Okay. The water system, the annual cost of the water system are about $30 million. About 56% of that is a volume-based cost. It's the cost to the region for the treatment of water and the disposal of wastewater. Approximately $5 million, 17%, is for asset replacement fund, and the rest, which would be approximately 25%, is the maintenance of the system. That would be the staffing, the testing of the system, and things of that nature, the repair of pipes as they break. So roughly just over half our costs are volumetric costs. 44% of our costs are fixed costs, and of the fixed costs, 17 of the total cost, 17%, $5 million would be for asset replacement fund.
Can you just give us a little description of what an asset replacement fund is for the viewing audience and some members of council?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The asset replacement fund was set up in the late 90s, and it was a reserve fund to put aside monies for when we're going to replace our infrastructure. In the case of water and wastewater, it can be akin to what one normally thinks of in layman's terms as depreciation. So we projected what the replacement cost of the infrastructure would be and started putting aside an annual contribution so that when it came time to replace it, we would have adequate funds in place. Unlike some assets on the tax board side, on the water and wastewater side, we started at 100% of the calculated contributions. So the concept is that as we go forward, as we replace the pipes, we'll have money in reserves to pay for that. So from the revenues we're getting now, which are actually using up the system, we're generating funds to replace those pipes.
Thank you. I think it is important that we set money aside for replacement of the use of these pipes and the infrastructure that we have, in that we are using it and we need to have the money set aside to look after it in the future. I had an additional question. in regards to whether we can put water rates on our tax base or if it's a separate line item. Maybe you can give us a little explanation on that.
Mr. Mays?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, legislation does not allow any of the water and wastewater costs to be put onto the tax, on the tax basis. The sustainable drinking water legislation, I'm sorry, I'm probably misquoting the name of that legislation, provides that the water and wastewater systems have to be self-sustaining. They go into some definition of that, but essentially all costs that pertain to that system, which would be the operating costs, the capital costs, an appropriate share of the overhead costs, providing for future replacements, are to be fully funded from those systems and cannot be supported from taxes. For this reason, if there is a surplus in the water system, it goes into the reserves. If there's a deficit, it has to come from those reserves. It is, in essence, like a standalone company, a standalone fund.
Thank you for the excellent explanation.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. I think Mr. Joly comes up with a really strong argument, and I think what he's trying to say is that although he understands that we need to have that money in there for our replacement, but the structure, the financial model of how we get to that point needs to be perhaps changed. And I'm just wondering, is there other municipalities out there that have a different financial model for replacing their asset replacement fund? So say, for example, using Mr. Joly's model of, the people that are paying more, are using more, will be paying more in their fixed rate, their floating fixed rate, and the people that are using yet less will be paying less. But the end result is still the same. So the outcome is still the same. And coming up with that how do you come up with that financial model? And is that possible? And have other municipalities done that? And I understand that obviously for this coming year to try and come up with that kind of a plan would be extremely difficult and obviously not possible. But thinking to the future, perhaps 2016, is that something that could be looked at and maybe even to come back with some information at a high level about how that could be possibly done and looked at as a model?
Mr. Mays, I think much of that is covered in the report, but maybe if you could be specific in terms of what steps going forward could be. Mr. Mays?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I understand, I think there actually was two questions in that question. One question was the pricing model of other municipalities, and the other would be how we fund the asset replacement fund. One thing I can say, and this talks to the fact that Newmarket's water rates are at the high end of our comparators on the residential side, is that our water system and wastewater systems are fully funded. This will show from the studies that we're going to be providing. This showed from the Hempson report that showed that when they projected going forward on our water and wastewater, our utilities, the infrastructure, that we have sufficient reserves in place, and we have a plan to make sure that we have money set aside to replace those. I cannot make that statement for other municipalities, so that would be one of the reasons we would have for that. Generally speaking, a lot of municipalities are starting to move to. We establish best practice as far as setting up an asset replacement fund. And a lot of municipalities are starting to move in that direction. You'll see this at the regional level. You'll see this in places like Mississauga where they're coming up with infrastructure levies. So a lot of them are copying our model as far as that's concerned. Some of them are just putting monies aside out of their surplus. But we actually build it right into our rates to make sure it's sustainable and that we can ensure we have the infrastructure on a go-forward basis. The other part of the question, if I understand it, was the different models, the pricing models. And through the BMA study, we do get information on that. You will find that a lot of municipalities tend to be 100% what called the volumetric measure, where it's just based purely on the amount of water you use. There are some that still go flat rate, either it's on the wastewater or on a combination of both, but those are becoming fewer and farther in between. And there's some that have a combination of both. As an aside, the region itself is actually starting to look at going to some sort of dual rate where there will be a fixed charge and a variable rate as well. So I would postulate on that basis that, again, that Newmarket has been well ahead of other municipalities, and they're starting to follow our example. The question, though, comes down to, and it's a philosophical question, is how much should the fixed charge be of the total? Originally, we had been targeting 50%, so that the fixed pricing, the fixed revenue would match the fixed costs. over time, and we've had the deputations from the deputant. We've been doing some analysis, and we're looking at some of our comparators. We feel that perhaps the 50% target is no longer appropriate, and we've come up with what we think is a better target, being 33%. Now, the 33% is not necessarily going to be just on residential, but we don't have the information at this time to see how to farm this out to the industrial, commercial, institutional users as well. But we're looking to going towards a tiered meter rate. So the fixed rate would vary by the size of the meter you have. But we don't have the information at this time to do that. So what we're suggesting in the rates for 2015 to actually freeze the fixed rate as it is now. In 2015, we're going to come forward with an update to the 6-year water and wastewater plan, which will be doing further review on the water rate structure and making proposals on a go-forward basis, and it will be taking that into consideration. Did I answer your question?
I think, Councillor Twinney, I think in part that's leading towards where you're going.
The end part is really where I was going, and I guess it's something you can look at in the future, but it's, I think, I mean, how do we, I guess, I mean, is there a way to determine when people are, using less to have them pay say a lower fixed rate than the people that are using more, or the companies are using more, pay a higher fixed rate and have some sort of maybe, even though it may be like a more tiered fixed rate within those groups that are maybe, divisions of like, say, 6 or 8 or something like that. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That rather than just having one fixed rate, or you're looking at maybe 2, like it looks like you may be looking at in the future maybe just a couple different rates depending on the size of the meter. Is there a way of changing it so that people that are really conserving their water are going to be paying less than the people that aren't?
Go ahead, Mr. Mason.
On page 27 of your package, we show the different meter sizes.
So that figure 3, that one there?
Yes, on figure 3.
So therefore, there would be a difference in the fixed sort of rate within those sort of meter size?
So what we're contemplating in change of rate structure is based upon the size of the meter, which, and the size of the meter would be the volume of water that system could handle, but also more importantly, that's the volume of water that we've designed the system to be able to bring to that meter, whether they use it or not. So that would be more appropriate for establishing the fixed charge. So what we're proposing in 2015, when we update the water and wastewater financial plans, is to take that into consideration, and we have variable charges based upon that. And there'll be sizable changes in the tiers. I've seen examples where an industrial meter, the monthly charge could be $1,000 a month. So, we'll be looking at those kind of numbers and determine what would be appropriate. But to have the overall target for all the fixed charges to be approximately 33% of the system.
Sorry, just one quick follow-up. So within those meter sizes, would basically though most of the households, like our regular households, fall under the same 1 meter size? So is this more appropriate for businesses as opposed to households?
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, your typical household would have a 5-inch meter, a 5-inch pipe, meter-sized pipe. They would all be the same. If we were to look at
5/8-inch pipe. 5/8-inch pipe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So mostly all households are going to be falling under the same one, so it wouldn't change a household.
What was suggested by the debutante and be contemplated is if we were to change the fixed rate to change with volume, it actually would no longer be a fixed rate. It'd be a volume rate. And if that is to be considered, we should just totally switch back to a volume rate.
Okay. I think the report alludes to what we might consider going forward, and I think that's what you're seeking, Councillor Twinney. I think that this is just a general outline as to what we want to consider. We'll need more information. We'll gather that information in 2015, and we can come back with a little more detail, a little more information. Mr. Shelton, did you want to speak to that as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to suggest the same thing. When you bring forward the report under recommendation 3, if council so wishes, that specific question that was raised by the council member relative to the resident suggestion could be reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Regional Councillor?
Thanks. One of my questions was answered. I guess, and I don't need to figure it out tonight necessarily, but are you able to do math? I'm trying to, when you're giving us a chart that shows what I believe is the the water rate for a 5/8 of an inch versus a 2-inch, but one is for 200 cubic meters and one is 10,000. So it's very hard to compare. I mean, can you actually multiply 839 by a number? So how do you compare what one's paying to the other? Because they're for different volume sizes, I believe. If I'm reading that right. Do you understand what I'm asking or no? Yeah?
Madam Commissioner?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to first, because our intern will answer that question, but I'd first like to introduce them to members of council. Kevin Yaroskevich is here today, and he did all the research on this report, and which you'll see is quite extensive. Generally, we try to stay within 2 or 3 pages, but he did a lot of research on it, and we've also would ask council's indulgence as we let him answer some of these questions. It's great training ground for our interns. Our second intern is also here in the audience today, and that's Ted Horton. Ted's right there. So Newmarket's very fortunate to have the experience, the young experience of our interns. So we're going to just turn it over to Kevin now. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the question was how we got these numbers for the chart. So BMA collects.
Sorry, that's not the question. Sorry, how do I compare the price being paid by somebody with a 2-inch versus a 5/8 inch? Because the numbers are for, one is for, I believe, 200 cubic meters, others for 10,000. Or could I compare? Could I get my calculator out and figure out?
Take the number and divide the volume.
Well, that's what it's doing, but it seems to come to quite a discrepancy. It does?
If you look at Horn, it comes to the same number all the way across the board.
Okay.
But I think Georgina may be different.
So can you compare that? Let me ask the question then. Is Councillor Hempel correct that if I did the math, that they're paying the exact same amount, even though one is for 200 and one's for 10,000?
So I believe how these numbers are collected is that they take the assumed fixed rate cost for the resident, and then they multiply it by the volumetric rate, and they also do that for the 2-inch meter as well, and assume the 10,000 cubic meters consumed, and then add the fixed rate.
Okay. Obviously, there must have been something urgent for him to deal with. Otherwise, he would have stuck around for the answer. But let me say this, that I think we can get in more detail, and maybe what might be the best thing, if we have any questions around some of the information, because this is very thorough, very detailed, if we can come back and either direct our questions directly to the intern, and or if there's some components that we would want considered when we review this again, if we could let them know, and that could be researched, and we could be in a better position to come to a conclusion on this. But this is just basically outlining some framework as to how we'd like to go forward, and I think we've got a good foundation for that. And if there's additional information that we need, then we can work that in well before the next report, and give you sufficient time to research it further if we need further information. Madam Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, we'd appreciate too if the deputation could leave his presentation. I noticed he was reading from it, so if he could leave that with us, then we'd be glad to address the number of issues that he brought up.
Okay, we'll make sure that that's in your hands. Councillor Kerwin, did...
Yeah, just a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. I would like to speak. I'd like to compliment Paul on such a professional presentation with regard to water and water rates, which are linked to the sewage rates as well. It is a very, very complex issue that's been debated over decades, and we came up with a fixed rate years ago because, as Mike has pointed out, 56% of your bill is actual water, okay, or the effluent that goes away, okay? The other 44% is for servicing, basically, of that service. And therefore, everyone uses that service equally. So that's 44% basically of your bill is what's in the ground, and the cost of maintaining it. So it's a real question. The other thing, too, Paul, I learned, and I really thank Bill Wilson for this input, because I have been going to these water conferences for about 15 years now, because I realized how crucial they were. Water is everything. Without water, nothing can survive. So to me, it's one of the most important elements. But years ago, when we were constructing Newmarket, we basically oversized our water lines. And then we had, as it's been pointed out, a 40% reduction in the use of water. That reduction makes it imperative for us, as Peter Neuhammer has pointed out, to flush our lines on a regular basis to make sure that you're getting a safe and quality water, which we do. In fact, the water in Newmarket, if it comes from the aquifer, and we have a two-tier system now, some from the aquifer and some from the City of Toronto, but if you draw from that aquifer, you're getting better water than you will have in a bottle of bottled water, I can assure you. So it's a real complex issue, and I would hope that when these presentations are being made with regard to water and wastewater and so forth, that we advertise it really well and draw people into this council chamber to hear why our water is so safe in Newmarket, and it is. And I compliment Chris Kalamutu and his staff at the Op Center for doing that. So it is important, but it's really complex, and I don't want to get into it right now, as Kevin doesn't, because I've had 15 years of the advice from an expert like Bill Wilson. Going up to the conference, I sit next to him, and we talk nothing but water and wastewater. But we oversized, and then we conserved, and therefore we're not using the water we used to, so you have to flush those lines.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga?
One note for the intern, just for something perhaps to consider in the expanded research. It's whether I can understand that somebody may purchase a home that comes with a 5/8 meter, or somebody with a 1-inch meter. However, that doesn't necessarily reflect the consumption habits of that household. So that is something that has to be looked at. And somebody that changes homes perhaps isn't going to use as much water as somebody has in the past. So I'm not sure whether the size of the meter is actually a clear indication of the consumption levels. First one. To Mike, two quick questions. One is, you said that other municipalities are able to collect infrastructure levies right now. Did you mean collect infrastructure levies that are actually dedicated to the maintenance and replacement of the pipes, the water pipes?
Mr. Mays?
When you were asked the question about the different models.
Mr. Mays?
I'm sorry, could I wasn't clear on the question.
Okay. When Councillor Twinney asked about what do other municipalities do, you said there's the reasons why one of our costs is higher is because we fund 100% the cost. And you said that you can't say for certain whether other municipalities are doing that or not. So actually, two prone question. One is, if they're not fully funded, what are they doing to cover the cost? The second, then you refer to the fact that some municipalities, such as Peel or Mississauga, are now introducing infrastructure levies. Is that in reference or to cover the cost of maintenance and capital costs of replacement pipes as well?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, my reference was that with harassed replacement fund contributions in our water and wastewater rates, that I feel confident that our infrastructure is and will continue to be fully funded. That the analysis we've, for instance, had from Hempson Consulting, when did the work with us on the capital financing and sustainability strategy, indicated that they had no recommendations other than continue the work we've been doing on the water and wastewater, that we are putting aside sufficient funds for the replacement of the pipes. My reference to other municipalities, and I don't want to besmirch them. I mean, I'm sure some are also just in the same position we are. A lot aren't, and what they're doing to fund them, they perhaps have not come to that point that they do have to fund them yet. So they've in essence put that off onto the future. So perhaps they're going to have to take out debt or or actually have extensive increases. Mississauga being a very good example. That wasn't that was on the tax support side, not on the water side, where Mississauga had a long history of no debt and very low tax increases, and found themselves in a situation where they're now currently going into debt and had very large tax increases. So that is how some municipalities could be financing the infrastructure that they're not putting money aside for. They're going to deal with it in the future with either debt or larger increases. The infrastructure levies that any municipality would put, if it's on the tax-supported side, cannot be used for water and wastewater, as we mentioned before, under the Sustainable Water and Wastewater Sewers Act. It cannot be used to fund the water system or the wastewater system. It can only be, they have to be self-sufficient.
Okay, so maybe for further clarification for the future, if what I'm assuming from your answer is that some of those municipalities, because they can't use the tax base to fund the replacement, they're either fully funded or they're not funded. So if there are other funding models, can we get that as part of the following report?
I could, but in essence, the other funding model is pay for it tomorrow.
Okay, that's the question the answer then I was looking for. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. No further questions? I'd like to bring forward, or at least we have the recommendations on report number 2014. Councillor Bazance?
Sorry, I was a little slow on the button.
It's okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
And I'd also like to thank the deputant for providing that different perspective, because it raised something else that's in the report with respect to the impact on low-income customers, and the challenge that this formula will have in terms of economic hardship for them. So my question is, although the report speaks to the current water rebate program, it also indicates that there's very little or low uptake on that program. So my concern is around how and what are we doing to truly advise people that may be experiencing hardship with the current formula to either apply for the rebate or make it better known that this is available to them.
Okay. Madam Commissioner, did you want to deal with that in terms of the communications of the rate change and the options that are available?
Mr. Mayor, we do advertise the program website. I believe it is circulated in the water bills. But as always, we are continually improving our communication plan, and we will certainly take a look at that going forward, what we could do better.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Just on that, I checked with Mike last year, and he gave me the detail on that, and it's not a huge subsidy that we're doing. It costs the average water user 50 cents per year, Mr. Mayor. Are my figures correct, Mr. Mays? Was it 50 cents for the
in terms of the rebates
for the rebate?
It is materially accurate.
Pardon, Mike? Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Thank you. So then we have the recommendations. Let's deal with report number 2014-36, which is establishing the user rates. We have the recommendations moved by Councillor Sponga, seconded by Councillor Kerwin. Any further discussion or debate? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. While we have yet another deputation, Mr. Shelton. We'll ask the third deputant to come forward, and that deputant is Mr. Howie. If you could come forward.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Is it possible that we defer the deputation until regional councillor comes back? I think there may have been some discussion with Mr. Howie and the regional councillor. I know the regional councillor has been pretty passionate about this, amongst a couple of other members of council.
Yep. Okay, well, it's that's the wish of council. That I'm okay with that. Then what we'll do is go into the presentations. It's a matter of keeping Mr. Howie waiting. That's the only thing.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, we'll wait. All right, Mr. Shelton, then we'll start with our presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you can just give us one moment to get the PowerPoint up on the screen. The presentation relates to report number 1, which deals with the orientation program, the strategic priority setting plan or program with council, the 2015 budget, and then also just to assist council, the setting out of some of the current initiatives that we have underway, plus referrals that have been referred to this council for consideration. So the approach that we're going to use is that we have assigned one of the members of SLT, so a commissioner, to the 3 initiatives that I set out. We'll get a very brief overview from each commissioner, and then I will deal with the extensive list of items that we currently have on our plate, plus items that have been referred to you for consideration. So we're going to start with the orientation program, and I'll turn it over to Anita.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Mayor, the orientation program for this term of council is structured based on feedback that we had received from the previous term of council, and the program will evolve over time. Generally, the schedule has been set, but the subject items could be added or deleted, as could the meetings themselves. And now, as Bob mentioned, our first workshop is December the 10th, and that is a facilitated workshop on legal and legislative framework. There's also a presentation on the community satisfaction survey, and that day will end with the bus tour. Now, there have been on our schedule various workshops on various topics. Now, to go back to, I think it was Councillor Kerwin that asked about the compliance training. That particular one is scheduled for February the 2nd. So, as well as all the workshops that you saw on the schedule, staff have also met with our 2 new members of council. We've had one-on-ones with them over, plus or minus the last 2 weeks. The reference material that you all received, the binders, has been posted to Town Central. So if you want a soft copy, you can find that there. And as always, we welcome your feedback on the orientation program for this term. Legislative Services is working on an online survey, and so that will go out to you all, and please provide us with your feedback. It helps us then for the next term as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, what I'd like to do is on each section, if there are any questions from members of council, we could deal with them.
Okay. Any questions with respect to this component of the presentation? Okay, we'll go forward then.
Okay, now Peter Nohammer has been assigned to the group that is doing the strategic priority setting process and program, so I'll ask Peter to speak to it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Mr. Mayor and members of council, through an RFP process, staff have secured the professional services of a consultant to help facilitate and work with council to develop a strategic priority setting exercise or process for the coming term. The firm that was selected is called WCM Consulting, Inc., in partnership with Tandem Thinkers. And the 2 principals are George Shriver, and he's being assisted by Doug Leach. Now, as is indicated on the slide, they will be setting up one-on-one interviews or separate meetings with each member of council to review and discuss your own ideas for the coming term. This will help to organize and ensure a effective council workshop at the end of January, currently scheduled for the 26th. And at that workshop, the facilitator will try to bring together all of the individual thinking that he heard from members of council and broadly capture the ideas into priority directions and hopefully start to assign some of the individual ideas within each one of those buckets under a sort of a preliminary work plan. So those meetings will be set up for, the one-on-one meetings will be set up for the beginning of January, and they will be organized through your administrative assistants. The idea and the goal is to come back after the end of January workshop with a more polished and more presentable document for a second workshop targeted at the end of February. So that's the structure and the work plan that we have set forward to help Council identify its strategic priorities for the coming term.
Okay, any questions, clarification? I'm sure questions will develop as we go forward throughout the process. Mr. Shelton.
So the 2015 budget, we are in the process of starting that discussion with Council, and Ian is our representative with that group, so Ian will speak to it.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Mayor, members of Council, just briefly on the 2015 budget process. There is a small team that's working on it that represents all three commissions as well as representatives from the Office of the CAO. And this process, this coordinating committee, is chaired by the Director of Financial Services, so Mr. Mays. In terms of, in advance of the December 15th Special Committee of the Whole, right now we're at the point where for the Finance Department is reviewing and compiling all of the staff submissions for the 15 budget process, but specifically on December the 15th, just for Council's benefit, it will be focused on discussing the community engagement planning process that we're forecasting, as well as talking through in detail the schedule, the timing, and the process of advancing the overall 2015 operating and capital budget process. So again, that will be discussed in full on December the 15th.
So we can go to the next slide.
Any additional questions? Councillor Veig.
You just mentioned the community engagement process. We've done quite extensive community engagement in the past. Or without getting into any detail, are we looking at addition to that? Have we seen best practices other areas? Or
Mr. McDougall?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Veig, the answer is yes, we certainly are looking to replicate what we've done in the past. We actually are seen as a lead community across Southern Ontario in terms of some of the proactive things that we've done. So we're certainly looking to continue with that. But as well, we are looking at best practices from other locations as well, and that will come forward on the 15th for discussion with Council. And as well, looking for additional ideas that Council may have from what they heard while doing the campaigning in the past election. So we're always looking for new ideas that we can augment what we're already doing. So it'll be what we're doing, looking to always expand it into more engagement. We ultimately want the community as engaged as possible in the budget process.
Thank you. Mr. Shelton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then moving on, the next group of slides represent three groups of different initiatives, lists of items. So the first one you'll see on every Committee of the Whole agenda, and it is the Outstanding Matters list. So on this agenda, it's item 18, page 121. What I've done with it is just to condense it so you see succinctly the items that are on the list. This list is used as a vehicle to keep Council informed on items that you specifically ask for reports back on. And what we indicate within that list is the time frame for them coming back to Council. Those time frames are reviewed every couple of weeks with our operational leadership team in case there are any changes to it. And the form also identifies items that are currently on the agenda. You'll see items that are bolded up. That means that we do have them on this specific agenda. The next step is if you do approve it and the item can be removed off of the list, it would have a line struck through it and it would come off of that list. So the reason that it is here is again to assist with council members and new council members in particular knowing the items that are currently in play, in this case that have specific direction from council to come back. So just without going through each item, I'll just point out a couple of quick ones. The sidewalk snow clearing review. Staff have been asked to bring forward a report that looks at clearing snow from sidewalks throughout the entire town. That would come forward as part of the 2015 budget. If Council is able to approve that based on other priorities and so on, that one could come into effect for the beginning of the next winter. So that's one of them. Another one is the splash pad request. We have one specific one on that list, and we've had others that have been referenced through discussions in the chambers and elsewhere. So that would be something that would come out through the Recreation Master Plan process and possibly through Council's strategic initiatives discussions. So unless there are questions on that, just in view of the length of the agenda, as I say, I wasn't going to go through each item, so are there any questions on items that are there?
Councillor Vitt?
Yes, sorry, just one question here, and that had to do with the splash pad. Looking at this, I was going to bring it up later. I'll bring it up now. This was a petition regarding a splash pad in Ward 6. There was also a petition, as you recall, and you know, a fairly large community involvement and led by the community regarding Ward 1. Why is that not here?
The list just has the Ward 6 item identified, but I have kept it from this summary because we do have that second request, and as I say, there have been requests. So I think what you'll see happen is through the Recreation Master Plan and any subsequent reports that you're looking for from us, there would be a plan set out in terms of how you deal with the town as a whole in terms of that amenity. Okay. So right now the outstanding matters list specifically references Ward 6, but there was a Ward 1 petition. It's not on that list. We'd have to recheck the direction, but we are aware of that one.
Okay. Yeah, just because it might certainly the residents of Ward 1 will wonder why it's not here with all the efforts that they had made in that area. So if you can recheck.
Maybe through the clerk, we'll just recheck that record. It may have been referred to the master plan process and is dealt with that way. I'm just not sure. Okay. But we're keeping that generic. So the next list then is these are items that...
Regional Councillor?
Oh, sorry.
Very quickly. And maybe it just comes on somewhere else, or maybe you're about to cover it, but the crosswalk at Water and Fair Lake Park.
That will be... Yeah, that isn't specifically identified on the list, but that will be... It is on our work plan. You'll see in the current initiatives, when we get into that area, we've categorized a number of the initiatives under one heading, downtown development or trail development.
As long as we're not losing track of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
No, in fact, we're dealing with GO on that as well. So that comes under the GO Train Operations Report. Thank you.
Good.
That is on the pending list under that last bullet. Thank you, Peter.
Maybe if we can go through the... Go ahead. Mr. Sheldon?
Okay.
Yep. Good.
So this next, these are two slides. They relate to items that have been referred from the previous council to this council for consideration. And there are quite a number of items on here. And I'll just highlight a couple of them that have timeframes associated with them. The use of internet voting. The previous council thought that a decision should be made for the next election within the first 12 months of this term. On the next page, we'll get to in a moment, there's another one, ward restructuring review, also has a time frame associated with it, and that's a 12-month period. There is the committee review, the structure and policy review, which actually is laid on. So some of these are part of the, what we're actually doing. Some of them have yet to be initiated, and we'd need to get direction from committee on that. There's one item on here that I've made a note is a follow-up report that really should be moved to the pending list, so we'll clean up the list a little bit as well, and that's the trail system use of e-bikes. So the reason that this is here is that what we would be doing is looking to council for, as part of the prioritization process, to determine if these items or any of these items fit into your priorities for the term, keeping in mind that once we have those priorities, there will be an exercise of staff taking a look at a work plan for the entire term, how they fit in terms of resource allocation, budget allocation, and timing. And just looking at how we've done that in the past, we would come back with something that shows a 4-year cycle and shows how the different things can fit in there to work within the budget, and if there are any additions that are required, we'd be setting that out for you. So that's the rationale behind these items being here. And then if you go to the next slide, so this one does deal with the balance of that list. The first item up there is on the code of conduct, and that is something that we'd probably like to deal with within the first quarter of 2015 as well. And the service pricing policy is going to be addressed as part of the Recreation Master Plan. So there are some overlaps between the different lists. So the next group, and we can come back to questions on that one. The next group then, the commissioners and I have tried to summarize with the directors the number of current initiatives that are in play and to categorize them in many cases as best as possible. So the first grouping is on continuation with the master plan implementation, and you have the old town hall, there's public art installations as part of that. The entrance signs, we're looking at entrance signs at Davis and Bathurst and also on Highway 404. These are pieces that there have been approvals provided, and in many cases these will be completed by the end of 2015. So they are currently in the process. Next grouping, we've talked a little bit about the Recreation Master Plan, the playbook, which will be in the first 2 quarters of 2015, and we'll look at the pricing philosophy. And also many of the other, what do we need for the future as the municipality changes in terms of facilities and programs that are being provided for the citizens.
Bob,
yes.
Before you go on, in the previous slide you referenced recreation user fees as part of the Recreation Master Plan and service pricing review. Will the service pricing review look at the overall service pricing philosophy, or will it be directed at recreation? It was a concern that we had a discussion about.
Yes, my understanding, Mr. Mayor, is that it will look at it overall.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the master plan is specifically about recreation, but we'll be dealing with the service pricing policy in its entirety.
Good. Thank you.
So the next one is customer service, and in a moment you'll get a presentation on our customer service center and program. So this is again a main category that summarizes some of the things that we're doing, such as the rollout into the Magna and the RJT facility to extend the customer service reach into those areas. There's also the proposal to expand into the Old Town Hall when we have that opened up. And a fairly new one as a pilot is extension of hours at 395 Mulock on council night as a pilot to see when you have activity in the building, to see what the uptake would be if we did have that open, looking at generally a shift of current hours for some of the staff. Then the secondary plan is really a big one for the community, and that is there's quite a number of things that fall under that category, such as the update to the park standards, making sure that we do look to preserving parks and open spaces, strategic properties, which we'll be having discussions over the orientation period and a specific session on that as well. And then marketing and whether there's a need for incentive programs to get some real action happening on our corridors. And then the very important rental pilot that is moving along for a site on Davis Drive. In transportation management, something that I'm sure every council member heard during the campaigning, and in talking with other CIOs, we're not unlike many of the other urban municipalities within the region and beyond, that traffic is an issue. So these are initiatives that that are currently being worked on: traffic mitigation, speeding. Construction coordination has become a real big one for us with the number of regional, provincial, and municipal projects, just to be sure that a very thoughtful approach is taken to that, and there's a coordinating group to try their best to deal with that. Go Transit improvements is another one, and it comes up under the operating side as well that we saw earlier, and they relate to things such as the hub study that is proposed towards the end of 2015 into 2016 with Metrolinx and Go to look at that hub on Davis Drive right at the train station, to look at what is that going to be like over the next 20, 30, 40 years in terms of proposals that are in place by Go and also by developers and the town in that area. Northern Six Collaborative partnerships are extremely important to us, so we do have a very successful Northern Six collaboration that's been ongoing for close to 10 years now, and a couple of specifics under it. In the N6, as we refer to it, you can deal with collaborative initiatives as a whole, or 5, 4, 3, whatever the number of partners would find a benefit out of the project. So the first one is in the IT area, and it is Aurora and Newmarket, taking a look at, are there synergies for efficiency and effectiveness between the two organizations for the delivery of IT services to the municipality. That review is about halfway through at this point in time. And Council will get a full update on the N6 programs. In addition to that, the solid waste and recycling contract, which was a 10-year contract and resulted in estimated $11 million worth of savings over a 10-year period for all of the municipalities and $5 million for Newmarket, that 10-year period is coming due, I believe, at the end of 2016. So we do have staff currently working on preparing the tender over 2015 for a tender call early in 2016. So we're ready with a contract for when that contract expires. In addition, we have found with the Northern Six that we were reaching for a lot of the low-hanging fruit in terms of our initiatives, and we're finding that a little bit more effort needs to be put in and investment to reach higher up in that tree, so to speak. So we do have a shared service review going on where we've seconded the 6 municipalities as a whole, seconded a staff member from the region, from the Strategic Initiatives Office at the region, to take a look at shared services across the 6 municipalities. What do we all do, and could we do that as a group? We've had some great successes. These things can range all the way from catch basin cleaning contracts to sharing IT systems and so on. So that's moving through, and we hope to have a report back in the first quarter, so the new year. We have all of our ongoing programs and initiatives with the N6. In economic development, we have the Broadband Intelligent Communities initiative that's moving forward, created at South Lake. The innovation team, which is a cross-municipal group of private and public citizens on that group. And downtown development, in that initiative, I would include the community center lands review to bring that one back to the fore, to take a look at redevelopment opportunities for the community center lands north of the Commons. Financial sustainability, looking at developing options for multi-year budgeting. And we will have our meeting coming up with Council in terms of our initial discussions on the 2015 budget, and looking to Council for any direction you wish to provide us in that regard. And continuing with the implementation of the capital financing sustainability strategy that came out of the Hempson review. And in the area of governance, you know about the boards and committee review. We're looking at updating the delegation bylaw, something that we do on an annual basis. The service of pricing policy and other bylaws and policies. And in shared fire services, so again with partnerships, we have the master plan for Centre York Fire going to a PIC in early January. It is one PIC as directed by the JCC, the Joint Council Committee, between the 2 municipalities to get feedback from the public, and everyone is invited to attend that. In addition, we have a request from East Gwillimbury that we've been dealing with for service on the northbound section of 404 up to the Queensville Side Road, and that will be briefing the JCC on that one in the new year. And in the area of environment and energy, low impact design, or LID, the LID type of designing in developments, roads, other and site plans and so on, is something that staff have been working on in the development area, but also for our own projects as well. That's a very environmental way to deal with such items as stormwater runoff, and that moves into the last 2 items on this list, and that is dealing with climate change, the number of storms in that we are seeing, and the need to look to design for different levels for storm protection. And we also have II infiltration mitigation. That is the removal of unwanted clean water from the sanitary sewer system, so you're not cleaning rainwater and runoff from roofs and so on into the sanitary system. And then asset management, the province and I believe the federal government as well have tied a lot of the grant funding into municipalities where they are looking to the municipalities of having a fairly robust asset management plan and system in place. We do have a system currently that is composed of another number of components, but that is something that we're working on to come up with a more comprehensive approach in terms of asset management, and that came out of the Hempson study as well. And I guess the last one, so on administrative initiatives, there are a number of initiatives that some are coming to their conclusion very shortly, such as a people plan and organizational readiness to deal with that demographic shift that's occurring throughout the workforce, not just in municipalities, but in other areas. Improving our performance development plan process, and a number of other components that I'd put under the heading of administrative initiatives. And then finally on next steps, so we would complete the orientation sessions, the budget 2015, and the strategic priority setting exercise as well. And that will then help us achieve alignment of council's strategic priorities and council's goals to the senior management team and then through the organization. So it'll align through department work plans and then into the specific goals and objectives in all of the different areas and with the individuals within the organization. So I wanted to be sure that at this point you have these items in front of you. You know some of the initiatives that we're dealing with, and for new council members and any of the returning ones, if you would like a package of information on, for example, the items that the previous council referred to this council, we can put those together for you, and the ones from the deferred list. And many of the initiatives I think we did cover through a number of the one-on-ones that you had with the commissions and with myself. So with that, I'll stop, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the strategic priority setting. When I look at this list, I need to remind myself that we only have 48 months to get this all done. So we're going to have to make sure that we set our priorities and that we put together a work plan or a timing that is workable throughout the term of this council. So I'm looking forward to that, the strategic planning session. Any other questions? Motion to receive the presentation would be appropriate. Councillor Hempel, Councillor Bezantz, all those in favor? That is carried. Now, I see we have the regional councillor back and our deputy back, so maybe if we could then go forward to... Oh, yes. There was a report in addition to the presentation, and my intent was to receive the report as well. And if that was the intent of the mover and seconder, then that was the way the record will read, that we received both the report and the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Okay, now we have a deputation now, Mr. Chris Howie. Mr. Howie, if you could come forward then, and we permit up to 5 minutes. Thank you. Oh, could you push the red button? That way we can, that's great.
Perfect. Great. I guess just quickly, I'm passionate about an outdoor hockey rink. I didn't have the opportunity to play hockey in Newmarket. The family couldn't afford it. Learned to skate on Ferry Lake. I'm that old. Then learned to skate at Lions Park in the pond that is actually still there today, just west of the basketball courts. I put together a group of community volunteers ready to step up to help the town to get an outdoor rink in place. I think location-wise, from talking to insurance companies and preparing a budget, the Lions Park facility that was used in the past, I understand that was used for several years without incident. I understand the equipment cannot work, but I think it's cold enough right now to have freezing. So the Lions Park that can be locked, has fencing, has lighting, has change rooms, has parking, is close to Riverwalk so kids can walk over to it. Obviously looking for some help from the town, but we do have a budget. I do have sponsors, both corporate and private, ready to put money forward. The budget, X factor in the budget is the insurance. What I'm hearing from insurance companies is $2 million minimum. for $2,500, and that carries insurance for 5 months. If we need $5 million, it's $3,500, which is a significant expense. Also looking to the town whether a rider can be added to your policy to carry it on your insurance, which would help offset costs from the community and from potential sponsors. The reason I like Lions Park, again, it's close to downtown. It has been used in the past. There's been recommendations for multiple rinks at Twinney or at Magna. I know outside insurance companies aren't going to go near an outdoor rink that doesn't have fencing, doesn't have lighting, can't have enforcement or hours of operation. I think certainly as a longer-term plan, and I know Councillor Taylor, you're looking, want to plan something for a longer term. I think we'd all like to have multiple rinks and multiple wards. Obviously, there's a significant cost associated with that. I'd like to see the Lions Park rink back up and running more permanently using the compressors and all 3 courts versus the 2, but I understand that that's about $500,000 worth of repair work. I'm sure that we can approach the companies that are working on Davis Drive right now and all their equipment to help us out and possibly provide some complimentary services to us with the amount of time they've been spending on Davis Drive. But I'm here, I guess, representing a list of volunteers that live very close to the facility. I live on Park Avenue. I have people on Timothy Street ready to step up to help out with flooding, with shoveling. One of the concerns is access, is the condition of the rink and of the ice. You know, can we get a Zamboni over from Riverwalk? Understanding the Zamboni cannot be driven on the roads. Can it be taken over by flatbed to the Lions Park once a day or twice a day to help out with flooding the rink, or is it just a matter of getting it shoveled and flooded? And I think timing is critical. Timing is not on our side. Christmas holidays for kids is 2 weeks or less, as I understand it. We need to move fairly quickly. So I understand your process is you're going to go to a vote next week. I think ASAP we need to get boards, potentially tarps, and get the volunteers along with possibly some staff help to get this rink done. I think scheduling is critical. I've skated down at Rennie Rink. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the park at High Park. Rennie Rink's operated as a community group. They lease the property from the town. The town owns, the city owns the Zamboni. The city provides, they do get their own insurance. There's 600 kids in the program. They have programs for boys for learning to skate or learning to play hockey. They have figure skating, girls hockey, as well as men's, all coordinated. I don't think we should just open a rink. I think we need to have an official schedule to allow beginners to play, girls to play. I don't know if figure skating would apply depending on the condition of the rink. I think if we have a Zamboni, obviously figure skating could be an opportunity. But we also need to look at who can manage that schedule, who can manage enforcement. There are some unknown questions here, but we do, I think, need obviously proper equipment and enforcement, which is a tough thing, as I understand right now, at Riverwalk with kids showing up with hockey sticks. It's tough for a person that's sitting inside to go out and manage that. So I think there are some outstanding questions. But again, from a community perspective, I do have a group willing to step up to help, bring funding, obviously being sensitive to your budgets, but we want to make something happen ASAP and have it up and running by the Christmas holidays. So that's a challenge for both of us to get this done and dusted, but I think we can quickly have 30 or 40 people to help get boards in place, tarps in place, and help make this happen as soon as possible.
Thank you, and I appreciate you respecting the timelines that we generally have for these deputations. Are there any questions, clarification to the deputant at all? If not, then we can receive the deputation and we'll bring forward report number Councillor Sponga, Councillor Hempton. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. I'll bring forward report number 2014-30 then, and that is the report from our Community Services Group regarding outdoor skating rinks. We have some recommendations before us. Okay, recommendations moved by Regional Councillor. Is the seconder? Councillor Vague, sorry. Okay. Speaking to the motion, Regional Councillor.
Just quickly, I think it's great to see this moving forward. I think this has been a need in the community that's been simmering and bubbling for a while, and needs to, and it's a need that needs to be met. I know through the Recreation Master Plan we're going to be looking at more fully and what other options are, but this opens a short-term window, and it frankly helps solve the problem that isn't simmering or bubbling, that just kind of burst onto the scenes on the Riverwalk Commons with sort of runaway hockey games on a daily and nightly basis, and conflict between users, et cetera. So I guess, that's all I'll say on that, other than just questions to staff. Assuming that the group can be formed and get insurance and et cetera, how quickly do you think, and can get the dollars required that they require to do, how quickly do you think this could be up and running? Like, can we literally pick a day in a week or so and say, volunteers come out, staff come out, and let's build it and go from there? And what?
Mr. Service?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Really will be weather dependent. So yes, it can be done very quickly if the weather cooperates. Because we are talking about a natural ice surface, there won't be any kind of plant to help facilitate it. So, so as soon as the weather cooperates, it wouldn't cooperate this week, unfortunately, because the weather would be too warm. But yeah.
So if I could then, and I assume we haven't spoken to it, and I know it was mentioned by the deputant, but I've got to assume we wouldn't be looking at trying to get a Zamboni over there. This would be a natural surface. Would we be able to, in that location, provide water access for flooding, and at least so flooding and shoveling is good, and then we go from there and see how it works out for a pilot year?
Yeah. Again, through you, Mr. Mayor. No, our recommendation in the report would be that we wouldn't provide a Zamboni, that it would be just water provided, and then the community group would be maintaining it through shoveling off the snow, and there is direct water access there that can be provided.
Okay, and what about the mention? What about would we be able to create some signage and a proposed schedule based upon our internal expertise that would allow for a lot of hockey but different time uses? Or?
We can certainly help with creating any kind of signage. We would recommend that we leave it up to the user group to determine that schedule, and the user group to then enforce it as well.
Right. Okay. Super.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Thank you. It's funny because we've actually had a pilot project at Lions Park. I think it was approximately 6 years ago. We tried to find records of it, but unfortunately we couldn't, and we had to go on the testimony of residents that were involved. In fact, it was actually Mahoney Construction that a few years ago supplied the boards, and we had gone through this process. What we had done at that point back years ago, basically, it was under the direction of Brenda Farrell at that point, and a group of residents basically gave the names that were involved, the community group. They were provided with the key for a room where they had access to water and a hose, and they basically took care of the rink from there on, and they supervised it and maintained it, and there was no use of Zamboni at that time. In regards to the insurance, I have some, it was interesting because the report does speak of the need for additional insurance, but and I'm not sure if, I guess the question will go to the Commissioner, but my understanding is from Mr. John Quinn that our insurance, and I'll quote you, I've spoken with our insurance in regards to the idea of a community ice rinks, and they're okay with our doing this and would be covered under our existing liability policy. Is that correct?
Madam Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, that is correct. Staff did confirm that. However, with that, there would need to be regular inspection programs that the volunteers would have to do, inspect the ice. They would have to go through a training so that they could be trained on what to look for. And there are a few conditions that we'd like to see if that is the case.
My understanding is regardless of who is going to insurance, that training and certain requirements would be required regardless, even if from an independent insurer. So I wonder if there is an opportunity for the town to cover the liability insurance and not incur additional costs to the residents. I think those costs then could go towards other things such as boards or whatever else, nets or whatever else they may feel that they could provide to this activity.
Okay, thank you. What we can do is make that part of the discussions that Recreation and Culture will be having with the community group. We're fortunate to have a group step up quickly and get a commitment to find the best possible solution both for the town and for the user group. So it's a consideration that might be part of the discussions. If you're satisfied with that, Councillor Smaga?
So I wonder if perhaps when we get to the recommendation, there should be an amendment that reflects this discussion, that the actual community rink can proceed, and staff would be willing to meet within this week, even at least to start with preliminary discussions and moving forward.
It's generally captured on recommendation number 2, unless, of course, council wishes to put some more definition around it. We could have these discussions as a direction to staff and understand that it is captured under item 2, or if we want to be a little more defined, then that would require an amendment to the recommendation.
While I have, while I'm speaking, Mr. Mayor, and I'm on the queue, I have another question in regards to the report. I wonder if I could raise that at this point. The report is referring to opening up the Riverwalk Commons past 10 p.m. For shinny hockey, and it is recommended here that it stay open until midnight. I would suggest that we keep that, that we tie that to the noise bylaw. There is residences, seniors resident and condo residents directly adjacent to that facility. So I was wondering if staff, if that isn't captured in the specifically in the recommendations, but is referred to in the report. So I wonder how staff feel about that.
Mr. Service, how did you plan to address the compliance with the noise bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're comfortable with the recommendation and direction of council in that regard. Really, that was meant to provide an alternative that would be palatable to those who are playing hockey. So certainly we can comply with.
So we can move forward with both the pilot project and. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I would make that a friendly amendment that's reflected. Well, I guess it's not in the recommendation, so I would add a recommendation that the additional use of Riverwalk after hours
be subject to?
Be subject to the noise bylaw.
Okay. I guess the noise bylaw would apply unless we were going to waive it. So the assumption could be that the noise bylaw would be applied. And then I'd have to ask the mover and the seconder if they see that as a friendly amendment. I just wonder if it's necessary, Councillor. You've highlighted your concern, and we're not asking to waive the noise bylaws, so the expectation would be that the noise bylaw would be applied. But
may I, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
What I'm concerned about is that this is a public report and it does reference midnight, and we know how difficult it is right now to enforce the rules that we're trying to enforce at Riverwalk Common. So not to get into further confusion, I think it would be best that we define that, either amend the report or capture in the recommendation.
Okay. Now, I don't have the mover and the seconder for that. That's Regional Councillor and Councillor Vey. Would you see that amendment as a friendly amendment, or should we deal with it separately?
I'll speak at the moment. I don't think it's necessary. I think certainly a mention of it in the report is fine. Doesn't harm to put it in there, but I really don't think it's necessary. And quite frankly, we do have our noise bylaws. We enforce it. We might want to pay special attention to that area. But that's the way I feel. Councillor Taylor?
Regional Councillor? Okay.
As long as it's direction to staff and stuff, if that.
I think we can. It can be just as effective if we provide that direction to staff, so that if there's concerns about the noise bylaw, the noise bylaw be enforced and prevails. Okay. All right. So we won't need to amend that. Councillor Vague, you're in the queue then for comments.
Yeah, just very quickly. This is an excellent idea. It's something that I'm sure all of us have heard from at one point or other from our constituents, from our residents, saying, "Why can't we just flood that park?" It's one area or another where it's flat. I have found that
Behind my home, there are 2 ponds there. My son plays hockey there. My daughter does her figure skating there, along with many, many other kids. They're able to, the kids and their parents are able to govern this themselves very effectively, clean the ice, make sure that the hockey players don't knock over the figure skaters, etc. It's amazing what residents, parents, and kids will do, give them the opportunity to govern themselves. So it does work for that. A real question I have, though, is it was really nice in deputation. We were speaking about boards and lighting, et cetera, but there's a lot of opportunities where it's just flooding a small area, building up the banks, the snow a bit, having a bit of access to water. And so we just have a flat area, rectangular usually, where kids and families can do their skating, playing hockey, figure skating, whatever. And that's something that doesn't seem to take a lot of time. We do have insurance in our parks, et cetera. Is that something that we can consider, even just identifying parks within the town, within communities where it would work? I know, for example, Ken Sturgeon has easy water access, a lot of flat land there, et cetera. It seems like that's something that can be done, weather permitting, of course, that can be done very quickly as opposed to waiting a year or 2 years or 3 years. It's just something we can do, perhaps even involve York Region, Newmarket Aurora Fire Services on that to help flood if needed, et cetera. So have you looked at things like that, very quick, down-to-earth, community-based approaches to this also?
Mr. Service?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Our intention in the report was really to we deliberately didn't identify a specific site because our intention is that if a community group were to emerge and come forward and suggest a site, we'd be happy to work with them to look at what the alternatives would be.
Okay, so the follow-up question to that, if any one of us here that we knew of a group in the community that, or we just publicized the fact that this is an option now, what exactly would the process be for them to come forward? I don't know if we have that process. We do mention, there's a mention in the report also of a brink team, et cetera, and that there is some sort of an agreement made between the community group and the town. Do we have copies of agreements that other municipalities have used? These are the type of questions I'm anticipating the residents of Ward 1 would be asking me, because I know immediately right now a group of people that would be very interested in doing this, and they've said over again that they would like and that they would maintain it. So do we have any of that nuts and bolts together yet if we want to move quickly?
Mr. Service?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. We are in the process of finalizing those things. We have a number of examples from other municipalities of agreements that they utilize. And the key is that we would want those groups to make an agreement, a firm agreement, that they have a solid volunteer structure in place that can properly maintain up to standards that are safe for participants. And so once those agreements are finalized, we would, in terms of process, if you had groups emerging, then the recommendation would be that they deal directly with staff, and we will work through walking through an agreement with them, helping them understand exactly what the requirements would be, and then we can go from there.
So final question then, it's long not really answered. Timeline for this, if people are approaching you next week, is that appropriate, or are we looking at next year, or sometime in February? Sorry, you brought something forward that's very, very popular. That will be popular.
As soon as the decision is ratified by council, we'll be ready to go. So,
okay, thank you.
Mr. Sheldon?
Good, Mr. Mayor, just to manage expectations and resources, if the requests come in, as per the report, the sites would be analyzed to ensure that they will work, that it's a workable solution, and it may be that this is phased over a bit of time to be sure that we do have resources to cope with it.
We're going to do, what, 24 of them before Christmas?
Maybe 7? No.
This is the 12 days of Christmas we're talking about here. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. Actually, a lot of the questions have been answered already, but I just want to say that I'm happy to see this happening. It's something that I talked about during our strategy session in 2010 and brought it up at other budget times. I think we've all talked about it, and certainly, like you said, lots of residents do talk about it. I guess, yeah, so I guess once it's ratified, we'll get the information on, you said in here, it says staff are recommending putting out a call for an expression of interest to a community group or group of individuals. So something that perhaps is going to be in the paper, I'm assuming, just to say, hey, if you want to do an ice rink, please contact whoever it may be, whoever the contact person is. Is that the next, like, what the steps will be?
Mr. Service?
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Regional Councillor.
Thanks. I have to admit, even though I moved the motion, I'm a little hesitant about the Riverwalk Commons skating at night from 10 to 12. Sorry.
Yeah, oh, no, I saw Councillor Twinney was still in the queue, and I didn't want to, if she intended to be in the queue, I didn't want to take her out of the queue.
Oh,
but,
no, I said thank you.
It's okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
So and my hesitation is you allow something to flourish at any time, and it just kind of takes hold more and more and more and more. And I think if we're going to go in the other direction, we're offering alternatives. It'd be nice to keep the Riverwalk Commons for what it is, which is community skating without. I guess I'd like to hear from staff on that if they're concerned about that. The 10 o'clock I think is good, but then we're also going to get some criticism from lots of people who say, well, my kids can't go out and play hockey at 10 o'clock, so they're going to say, why are you bothering to do this? I know there's some adult use. But I guess my question is there any concern from staff about setting the precedent and then not being able to curtail the earlier, skating at 9 or 8 or?
Mr. Service.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a legitimate concern. What our position is that Riverwalk Commons, if you look even at the water feature, when it was originally envisioned, it wasn't necessarily envisioned as a wading pool or splash pad that it is now. That the use sort of evolved into that based on how people started using it. And that's sort of how we view hockey happening there, is that there's clearly a community need and there's a community demand that's emerged. And so by creating an opportunity that's sanctioned at the right time of day, we feel like we're addressing that need. The other factor in all of this to keep in mind is that an outdoor rink that has no plant underneath will only be subject to the weather. So unfortunately, last year we had weather that would cooperate with that kind of a rink, but if you look historically, weather hasn't traditionally cooperated with that. And so our feeling is that if we only restrict it to an outdoor rink that has no ice plant control underneath, then we are at risk that there won't be any outdoor hockey available if the weather doesn't cooperate.
Are we going to be adding some new significant signage, and will we be dedicating some resources, staff, bylaws, whoever, to try to clamp down on the pre-10 p.m. hockey? Because I think it's already taken hold, and it's not going to just stop because we say you can go after 10. So I think we're have to get a bit tough for a few weeks about not before 10. Is that our intention?
I think in light of circumstances that have happened lately, we've had a number of issues that have emerged over the last couple of weeks there that we do need to revamp our enforcement for the next little while, certainly, and we can definitely improve signage.
And finally, my last question is, would staff recommend or support an amendment to what's in front of us to limit the number of pilots? I've got to admit, I'm keen on what we're doing. I'm excited by it, but we're doing it late in the season. We don't know what we're fully getting into, and it is a pilot. I'm worried about getting 6 or 7 applications and an expectation that we fill them. And if we say, there's a limited number or 2 or 3 max, I kind of lean that way. I don't know what staff feel.
Mr. Sheldon, your thoughts?
I would be in favor of that. I think that is essential. I think we do need to take a broad look across the town to see how many of these could be supported. So, it's late in the year already. I have to commend staff for their quickness in bringing in the report and for their risk-taking on this in general and the creativity that they're showing. But I think that for the first year, if it can be limited to a couple, but with the direction to staff that we want to increase that, and this is part of that, as part of your strategic directions to us, that by the end of the 4 years you may have something that is a number of these that are well positioned throughout the town.
So I'd like to put forward an amendment that limits the pilot for the community rinks to 2, and that staff be asked to decide which 2 are the most appropriate based upon fit and the speed with which they come forward. So I mean, enough to just leave it to staff to decide which 2, but I assume it's going to have something to do with who comes first, and as long as they're reasonable and supportable.
Councillor Big, do you see that as a friendly amendment?
Reward, yes.
Just two?
Yes.
Yes, that's friendly, okay, so we won't need to vote on that. Okay, Mr. Commissioner? And then
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add, there was a question a minute ago. And one of the benefits of this as we were going through this process was to really try to arm staff with solutions as opposed to just going and trying to enforce what is emerging as a challenge for us. So by having a nearby option of playing shinny hockey at an outdoor rink, that enables our facility staff or bylaw staff or York Region Police to actually go and assist in enforcement when it's happening in hours that it shouldn't be happening at Riverwalk Commons. As well, it also, by having the pilot project later in the evening, it does also assist staff by being armed with information that we can share with people to get them to understand that they can come back at another time, as opposed to just saying no. As well, in that communication piece, we'll make sure that staff include promotion of the pickup or shinny hockey that we do have available within our indoor facilities, which is also quite popular. So we'll make sure that we're promoting that as well at the same time. So it enables staff to have a communication piece and more of a dialogue with somebody who's doing something that's clearly not allowed at that time of day, as opposed to just saying no. So we're hoping that will help to positively influence behavior.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Yes, last year we had a similar situation, actually the last couple of years, and we had, I think they're called skate cruisers, or is that what they're called? They're not police cruisers, they're like young people that are skating, or staff there. Do we have them this year, and if we don't, why?
Mr. Service?
We didn't actually have any last year. It was a couple of years ago that we last had skate cruisers there. The challenge that we're faced with staffing it with skate cruisers is twofold. One, we have no idea of when it's going to be busy and necessitated and when it's not. So we're ending up paying staff for a lot of time that there isn't necessarily a need. It's very weather dependent, and also we run into health and safety issues of because the hours are so extended. To have someone working outdoors nonstop like that can be a real challenge as well. So we haven't planned on including skate cruisers. We are going to have to look collectively across the organization at how we better manage and enforce this over the next little while, though.
And I'll tell you why I'm asking, because on Saturday night, I left the community center at around 9:30, and I understand that our staff, our facility staff, can't be outside continuously. But it was a parent saw me come out of the community center and brought to my attention the fact that there were already about 6 or 7 teens with a parent with pots and sticks on the ground. When I went in to notify staff of that, by that time there's already like a half a dozen people playing hockey. It becomes very difficult to do so. So there has to be either video monitoring or staff, either by law enforcement or somebody that is there to ensure that this, by the time there's 7 or 8 people playing, it's going to become very difficult for staff to try to talk to them. It becomes more of an actual enforcement issue. So any ideas or thoughts around that? And I'm not talking about over the next month or so. I'm talking about, this evening.
Mr. Service?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have been working with Recreation, Culture, Public Works Services, and Bylaws. Have been meeting already to discuss how we can go about resolving that issue, and we do believe that through an initial enforcement by the facility staff that are there. And if they are faced with a difficult situation, the bylaws area has agreed that they would gladly come over at the drop of a phone call to help also enforce if the game got larger. And we are also in touch with York Regional Police to support, provide additional support beyond that. But at this point in time, our plan is not to staff with skate cruisers.
Okay, but you should. I would like to get some confirmation from your regional police that they're prepared of responding. Because my understanding is the last 2 incidents, the police referred the incident to bylaws. They're saying it's not a police matter that people are using sticks and pucks on the ice. It's a town issue, and they had no opinion on it. They walked away. So I think that portion needs to be addressed as soon as possible as well, that side of the enforcement aspect.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sure staff will explore what their options are. Okay, so we have the recommendations before us as amended, specifically with respect to the limits for the 2 additional rinks and direction to staff to ensure that the noise bylaw is enforced. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. It's great to see that there's already a community group that's willing to step up for this. So that's I'm looking forward to what the options might be. Okay, I think we still have one more presentation, if we can come back to that. I think that deals with all of the deputations. I wonder if we might, I see that it's about 20 after 3. I wonder if we might take a 10-minute break and come back at 3:30, and then we'll start with our final presentation. Okay? Good. we have a quorum here, so if I could have members of council take a seat, and we'll rush into item number 2 of our agenda. Okay, some introductory overview, Mr. McDougall, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, we've got a presentation for you today with Bonnie Munslow, who's the Manager of Customer Service, and Jamie Boyle, who's the Supervisor of Customer Service. And they're going to cover off a couple of high-level points, the first of which is around the CRM tool, which really is an excellent resource for the community and for council and for staff, where concerns are logged and escalated and tracked throughout and closed off, including a communication loop that can be closed off. So it really is quite an effective tool that can be utilized by the community. And then the second area is really to talk about what really has resulted in a great way from a realignment within the Community Services Commission that occurred 2 years ago, where one of the outcomes was to look at better service delivery for customers, and really it involved an expansion and ultimately a rebranding of the kiosk operations that were traditionally in recreation and culture to come under the umbrella of customer service in that department. So as part of that full rebranding, there was also a retraining of staff, a review of how we staff those operations, and ultimately an expansion of services, which they'll get into in more detail. So really quite proud of the transition process through recreation and culture, and ultimately when the baton was passed formally to customer service, the lead and the excellent work that they've done to really advance it going forward. So without anything further, I'll pass it over to Bonnie and Jamie.
Thanks, Ian. We've been using Access Newmarket now for over 10 years, and thanks to Jamie as a customer service supervisor and our friends in IT, we've got really good at creating call types that are meaningful for the business that we do, and also some reports that help all of us, whether it's through budget discussions or trying to understand what's going on in the community. One of the important key metrics that we have in customer service is that 100% of the calls and issues that come to us will not be closed until the loop is closed. So not until the customer is advised, the solution is come to, the issue is resolved, and then and only then is the issue closed as far as the technology goes. By channeling as many issues as we can through the customer service center or through this software in particular, we'll be able to better identify trends. So the software is used in customer service, it's used in the customer service kiosks, it's used by the folks at the Public Works admin building, and it's used by the staff, the support staff, and the mayor and the councillors' offices. Jamie's role as customer service supervisor is to monitor all the pending items. He prepares reports, he escalates issues that need to be escalated to department managers, supervisors, directors, etc. And he gets copied on all the escalations. So if something's going on and it needs to be resolved or there's a problem, he's already aware of it and he's on top of it. So he's going to do a quick demo of the tool so you'll better understand how we use it and some of the powerful reports that we can get through this technology.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to go through this as quick as possible, but give you as much information on it as I can. So what you're looking at in front of you is the CRM software, or the customer relations management tool that our customer service center, our kiosks, and like Bonnie said, some of our other frontline areas do use. This software is used to track all the interactions that we have with our residents across town, whether that be by phone, by email, by counter. Any interactions we have, we manually input into this software. So just to give you a brief overview of how we do this, this screen is up in front of every customer service associate as they work throughout the day. It is their primary tool that they use. We have two different types of, and if I refer to them as calls, that could mean a call, a counter, a customer interaction of all sorts. I'm just used to calling them calls. We have two different types. We have what we would call a quick call. A quick call would be someone that's either just called for brief information on what are the hours of the Magna Center, or when is my next garbage day, things of that nature. Those would be considered quick calls. We don't need someone's name, address, phone number, anything for that. I've designed it so that the associates themselves can simply just go in, and it's of course anonymous. It fills out that this was a tax call. We don't need their name, their address, or anything like that. This gives me the metrics at the end of each month to know how many people have come in or made these type of requests, and they can be for any one of our call types, and there are several hundred in the system. The second one, and the I don't want to say the more important, but the one that has involves a lot more staff is what we would call a service request. Now, a service request is where someone like yourself, or myself for that matter, I'm just going to go out and try a new one. Oh, it doesn't want to use me. There we go. So someone was to call into the customer service center. We'll pick this handsome individual. And immediately when we enter in either the caller's last name, phone number, or their customer ID, it comes up with their call history. So every single time that this person has contacted us. Now this is me. So obviously there's a lot of entries in there for training purposes. But I can go to any one of your previous calls, look it up, open it up, and go to where it's currently at. Or if this was a new subject, I can continue and start from fresh. So for example, you were calling in, or Mr. Boyle was calling in because the curb stop in front of his house has popped up. There's not a lot of information put in there. We would obviously put a little bit more. And this would be assigned, in this case, to our operations staff so that they could fix that. Now, just for you know, the curb stop is the metal plate, if you will. It's usually in your driveway. And usually in the spring, you see them pop up out of your driveway. That is basically just a port for the water shut off to your house. We do get a number of calls on those throughout the year, and especially after a very cold and long winter. So in this case, I would, because this was a water question, we would put it in as curb stop repair. And I'm going through quickly, and I apologize, but I don't want to bore you. And I would assign that to one of ours and then send it. What would happen then is the assignee on the other end, in this case at our operations, would actually receive a email asking for assistance or a service request in this case. They simply have to follow the 3 steps that it would take to respond to this. What would happen then is that the associate who assigned this, in this case myself, would receive, if you see my cursor down here, down on the bottom, once this is answered, it would populate here and give us the answer that we could contact the customer back to say that this will be, in this case we'll probably say, it will be added to the cleanup list, which is usually 2 weeks' time, but that varies depending on weather and other factors. Just to let you know, throughout the day, all different associates and different people who have access to this software can monitor the current status of all the tickets that they've sent out by simply pressing any one of these buttons. We've got some down the side here, but throughout the day, the associates will be checking those to see the current status. So if something has been changed, someone has answered us, that will pop up and allow us time to either complete and close the ticket and contact the customer back, or we can assign back to the assignee for further information if there was more information that's needed, or if the answer wasn't clear for us to respond to the customer. Okay.
Priorities?
Yes. So each call type, in this case, curb stop, you can see has what's called a priority 4. There are 4 different priorities ranging from 1 to 4, from most serious to a 4, which is what we would call an FYI. The first 3 priorities, 1 through 3, have an escalation, a predetermined escalation in there. So if it's not acknowledged, not solved, not the service has been completed, but if it has not been acknowledged by the assignee in a set amount of time, it will escalate not only to them, but to their supervisor as well. This will prevent tickets from sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And it will keep going up that line until someone acknowledges it down the line. Like Bonnie said, I'm also included on those. So as soon as it gets to a certain level, I get involved to make sure that this doesn't continue to rise. And that's what those priorities are for. The associates do have the ability to change the priority if they deem it to be more serious than what it's currently at. For example, if we found out that there was some broken material from a car crash or a car accident on a street, and from what we talked to the person on the phone about, it sounded like there was more damage there than a standard cleanup, we could escalate that up to a 1 or a 2 and let the folks over in roads know that there's glass and potentially some plastic and metal on the road as well, so that they might want to get out there faster. So we do have that ability to escalate and de-escalate those priorities. Okay. So once we send those tickets to the assignees. They come back with a status. Currently, this one's in open. They have the choice when they answer it to put it in pending, pending seasonal, or completed. Each one has its own time frame, obviously, if it's pending. If it remains in pending, the department in question has approximately 20 days to look into that matter before it will remind them that that this is still in pending. So it can't just sit there for any extended period of time. They will continue to be updated along the way, in addition to customer service associates who will continue to ask for a current status update of said ticket. Pending seasonal is just that. We might not, when it's put into that status, it doesn't send a reminder until the next season. And things like that nature would be usually in our forestry division, or sometimes where if it's currently in the snow and we can't access something because of the winter, we have to wait till the spring. That would be it. And then obviously completed means that the person that we assigned it to has completed what we had asked of them, and then the associate would follow up with a phone call to the resident, and then we would close the ticket ourselves. So that's sort of the Coles Notes version of the life of a ticket through customer service and some of the outlying facilities.
Now we'll show you some reports that we use on a regular basis. So this first one is total customer contacts, and that would be email, counter, telephone calls, mail, year over year. The first year that we opened the Customer Service Center, we were in the 130,000 contact range. But as we promote e-servicing and our website becomes more robust, you can see that those numbers decline, which is exactly what we want to see. And then the green bars are the partnership calls that we took for York Region, so York Region Waste, Green Bin, etc. These are the top 5 service requests for 2014, showing the trends for those 5. So parking enforcement, parking exemption, curb stops, boulevard trees, and property standards were the highest volumes for tickets assigned over the course of the last year. Go to the next one. Yep. And these are the top 5 service requests for each ward. And if anybody's interested in more information or drilling down on some of this, we'd be happy to show you and help you understand what's going on. But you see each of the 7 wards and what's going on for 2014 as of the end of October. Okay. Waste collection was a huge driver for volume at the end of 2013 and 2014, as you're probably not surprised to hear that. And this doesn't include the 860 some odd calls that GFL took in 2014 as well. So the Customer Service Center took 1,608 calls related to waste issues or complaints, not just when is my garbage pickup. It's about missed collections, driver complaints, etc. But then when we break it down month over month, you can see that the issues were pretty intense for several weeks, especially during the snowstorm, and then they kind of dropped off. And we only had 25 in November, which was great. And certainly an impact to the Customer Service Center and the resident over the course of the end of last year and the beginning of this year. This is an example of a report that with our GIS system we can show. We can do this by ward, but what you're looking at right now is the town as a whole. And the top service request for 2014 so far town-wide was request for parking enforcement. So you can see some of the hot spot areas. And again, we can drill that down by ward if that's something that you would be interested in and blow it up for you. Okay. And another way of showing similar information using the GIS system as well is this is property standards. That was the number 5 service, was it number 5?
Number 5. service
requests so far this year, but you can see where the concentration is related to issues related to property standards. And clearly, in Ward 4, there's a bit of some issues there. And we share a lot of these reports with the supervisors, managers, directors. They're used in helping to make budget recommendations, but also to understand what's going on. And part of Jamie's role, as I said, is he prepares reports weekly, monthly, quarterly for the department heads. And hopefully it helps them to better understand what's going on. And that was it. Anybody has any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Sponga.
On the very first example, first of all, thank you for the presentation and for all the great work you guys do. You are our years, I guess, out in the community, and you're the ones we rely on most of the times to get to address some of the concerns and questions that we get on a day-to-day basis. A couple of things. On the very first example you gave, Jamie, you said you went to the solution information, which was that little that area in there. You were saying that over in that area, then operation would add to clean up or whatever. When you get that information from Public Works in this instance, is that considered closed, is completed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. When that response comes in, the associate themselves would take a look at the answer, analyze what it is that it said. If we understand it, we would relay that message back to the initial caller because we were the primary source of contact for them. So we would be the last point of contact for them.
So, sorry to interrupt, but if the reply was yes, it's put in our program to clean up, how would you deal with that situation?
So then if I was the one who took that call, I would contact Mr. Boyle back and say, Mr. Boyle, you have been added to the cleanup list. That list is usually this amount of time.
Okay.
If you do not hear back from this point, you can contact us back at this, at which point I would close it down.
Okay. So it's not closed necessarily when the service call is completed. It's closed once customer service has assigned that service request to a specific unit, business unit.
Once we have answered back the customer in question. Now, in some cases, and Curb Stop might not be a great example for this, there might be questions that come back from the resident once we answer them.
Right.
That would keep the ticket alive.
Right.
We wouldn't close it at that point simply because we had a conversation.
But in this instance, so it would be added to a program.
Yes.
And then at that point, you contact the customer and you let them know that it's been added to the program and it might not take for a couple of months for that to occur, right? And you let them know that if nothing happens, then they got to contact you back, right? So when they call you back 2 months later, for example, and for whatever reason, it can happen, they skip that address, you wouldn't be able to, you would have to reopen a ticket. You wouldn't be able to actually see whether that work was completed or not.
Customer service would not be able to see that.
Okay. All right. So, and I think this is somewhere that we need to work on because I think that from the customer's perspective, they expect that once they get that call, that actual service call is going to happen. And sometimes, for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. And then they end up calling back, and then the whole process starts again. And so then it gets referred back to Public Works, and now you're waiting for a reply back before you can go back to the customer. And that I find that customers find sometimes is a bit of a gap. My second question was, when a counselor calls in, and I've discussed this with you many times, a ticket is open. If I ask our EA right now, Darlene Murray, she's able to open a ticket, right, a CRM ticket. Again, she is informed, she gets that same solution information come in. Is she notified when the service call is completed, or does she have to go back and find the ticket number for that specific incident request and track it back?
She actually has the same abilities as customer service associates to sort through her existing tickets that are out there and to see if there is a status on them.
Okay.
And so we double-checked that actually after a conversation with you the other week. We double-checked to ensure that she does have that and she does have the means.
But there is nothing that is generated back to her saying, you know, the ticket that Councilor for Ward 5 is open as being closed.
At this time, the software doesn't notify her that.
Okay. And one last question. In the past, I've tried to access Newmarket from a BlackBerry and open our own ticket. Is that program now can we do that now? Or?
From our website, is it, I'm assuming that's what you mean, through the...
right, I would have to go through the browser.
That's correct.
Okay.
So when you go through the browser on your smartphone or your tablet or whatever it may be, on the main page there is the ask a question or have a question or an issue, I believe is what it says.
Right.
That would contact customer service right away, and what that will do is come directly to an associate who will either answer it themselves, and if they can't, if it's a service request, would assign that out just the way I showed you, and can respond back to you provided you've given a means for us to contact you back.
Okay, so within the field that is provided under got a question or an issue, there's a little field that opens up, and then send. You put in what the question is, and then you would put the request to be contacted back when the ticket is closed.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hempel.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation also. I saw a lot of red in property standards in Ward 4, and I guess I really have to thank Shelley, our bylaws enforcement officer, for all the hard work she does, and that's much appreciated. I think for myself, one thing that would be very helpful, and I'm not sure if this has been considered or not, we are the residents' representatives and for our individual wards and some people for townwide. I'm wondering, are we going to be able to have some kind of information report on our ward as to the status of complaints or resolution to those complaints? Because that would be really helpful for myself. Sometimes I'll have a call and somebody has said, you know what, what's the status of this? And I've called in, and that information would be helpful to myself. So has there been some consideration to that?
In CRM.
Providing a monthly report or...
So to that point, for example, I touched on it briefly, and if you'll indulge me for a second. Councillor Sponga, may I use your name?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in this case, Councillor Sponga has used customer service before. So when I select him, this is a list of all the previous times that he's used us. This, as you can see down here, gives us the current status of everything that he's given us so far. So to your question, if I'm answering it correctly, we can look, if there was something currently impending and you were the person who brought it to me, I could present this report to you, provided you were the originator of the...
So what I'm looking for is more, not the ability to check things that I've called in, but geographically my area when a resident has called in. So someone in the ward, whoever that may be, has an issue, and I would just like to know the status or a report that would come forward to myself. That would be helpful to myself. Here are the concerns of this person, or maybe not even the person, or this issue, and here's the status.
Okay.
Is that something that's been considered?
If the issue came to us through you, we would update you. If the customer approached us directly, we would update the customer.
Okay.
And if the customer said, could you keep my member of council in the loop, then we would let you know as well.
Does this software have the ability to look at a geographical area and create a report and provide it to council?
With the assistance of, between customer service and in this case GIS, we could do that. So similar to some of these reports that you did see, we would have to input it. So in this case, this is townwide. I have done them for specific ward, for specific call types. It can be done. What we have to keep in mind here is people's names and personal information that's on there.
Sure.
Yeah, so outside of that, if it were just looking at statuses that are regarded, that can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Just to be proactive, soon we'll be coming out with the calendar for yard waste pickup, green bin, blue box, and garbage. One of the things, and everyone should get one, but we should be really proactive in the communication to the residents about when they put their items out. Some people put their yard waste out a week before it's to be picked up, and it's in bags. And by that time, the bottom of the bag has rotted or it become wet. And it's discomforting for the Green for Life to pick those up, and I've seen that really happen. And then those bags spill over into the curb, like at this time of the year, and we've left with leaves along the curb, and those leaves clog the storm water, the grates that are compacted by leaves at this time. And I really think we've got to get the people to put their, particularly the yard waste, out when it's just the night before, not the week before, 2 weeks before. And the same way with blue boxes, because if people if they don't put it in properly, everything blows all over the place, particularly those light plastic things we put raspberries in. So they're on the top, so the wind comes along, and after blue box, all the debris is all over the place. And I think we've got to do a better job at asking people to put the blue box out with a heavy item on top, so there isn't the debris left over after a blue box day. The same way to put their yard waste out in a due manner, so the bags haven't rotted and the leaves are left in the curb. And if we don't clean the curbs, then when we do sweep the streets in the spring, in April, May, it's heavier load for that street sweeper because they're sweeping up all the leaves that were left behind from the fall. So I think it's just an item I'd like really addressed, because right now I'm looking at a couple of corners, Alexander and Shrigley and Maple and Gorham, where the leaves are really heavy already on the curb, and those leaves will block that that drainage for the water, the runoff.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Bazance.
You had items really high on your list. I don't doubt that. You have a lot of problems there.
Thank you. Councillor Bazance.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And just, I guess, for a little more of my own clarification, I think that often residents would prefer to go directly to their ward councillor to solve their problems or help them navigate. So what you're recommending is that the councillor then submit the complaint or the concern or the issue through this system? Is that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. You can send it to Darlene Murray in the councillor's office, or you can send it to the customer service center, either by phone, by email, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
And it'll get it put
And
in.
then I think Councillor Hempen had addressed it too. Then do you provide the ward councillor with the results of anything that they have directed to the system?
Yes, unless
so
you
that
would like
we can do a personal follow-up or something like that.
Absolutely. Unless you want us to call the customer on your behalf, we would do that as well. It's up to you.
Okay. And then my next question regards what happens when you have a situation where an issue may be deemed closed and then everything is fine for 2 weeks or a month and everyone's happy, and then the situation happens again, so you might have, a chronic reoffending. Does the program allow you to flag those kinds of things so that you can then see, this one is not going away even though we keep closing the ticket, but something else is happening, so it alerts us to perhaps a chronic condition that...
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, in that regards, if we have the ability to reopen an existing ticket. Some departments prefer to have it come in as a new ticket, because for them, that's their way of being able to flag that this is as you say, a chronic or a reoccurring service location. So for example, property standards I'll take just as an example. If we had an address that was an issue and it was reported, it was dealt with, 3 months later it came back again, the officer would want to know that this is a new issue and not the one that they dealt with a few months earlier. So to answer your question is, the system doesn't automatically tell you this is a problem spot. The assignee that we assigned it to would recognize that, as well as the associate themselves have the ability to see if there's been prior tickets on this, in this case, service address. So yes, to a certain point, that answers your question.
Okay, good. Thank you. And just one final question. I noticed that in Twitter now, people are able to submit issues through Twitter. Are those also being tracked?
If they come to the customer service center, yes. The communications department will often call us and ask what's going on, or they'll already be aware of what's going on. But if they come through us, yes, we will track.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broom-Plumley.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen so far over the course of the year with your customer service.
Thank you.
The only question I have is when a resident makes a request that is outside of the services we provide, for hydro, for example, how is that responded to?
Do you want to answer that?
Sure.
Yep.
We do also track that as well. So something like hydro, for example, Newmarket Hydro, we get a number, because not all residents know that it's not dealt with through 395 New Lock. So we will refer them to there and then track that as a Newmarket Hydro inquiry. So we do have the ability to track that. If it's outside of something, maybe not like hydro, if it's the region or maybe the Lake Region Conservation Authority or something that's outside of us, we will track them. We don't, YRT is a good one. For example, the work being done on Davis Drive, it's understandable some people don't know that it's the region doing that, so they assume it's the town, so they might contact the town. We do track that in this system, and this is provided by me to our liaison with them on a monthly basis, so they are aware of those issues. Some of the smaller, and I say smaller ones because we don't get that many for hydro or for Lake Region Conservation Authority, so I'll keep them. If I start to notice that it's a building trend, then we'll contact them and let them know that we're getting a number of additional requests.
Perfect. The second portion of my question was how is it tracked, so covered it both. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Thank you. The customer service really has their stuff together, and it all works as long as we contact customer service. Unfortunately, many of us, including myself, are just in the habit of picking up the phone and calling Rod Smith, or calling Rachel or Chris Kalamoto. So maybe this question is more for the CAO and the commissioners, if anything else. Are we sure that if a councillor picks up the phone, and I suspect Councillor Kerwin is one of the most guilty of this, calls staff directly, how do we know that that inquiry is actually making it through to customer service and becomes legitimized through a ticket, and then we can actually track it?
Mr. Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had pushed my button before the Mayor called on yourself to speak. I was going to add that as we talked about in our one-on-ones with council members, we are looking at improving the experience of our council member customers and through customer service to come up with better tracking systems and to improve customer service. And the points raised today, I think there are some good ones that we need to talk about that go beyond the customer service center into the departments. So to that point, the strategic leadership team and we've been meeting to look at, what are the administrative priorities coming up, and one of them is along the lines of even better customer service. So we are looking at what can we do to get to that next level, and the tracking system, I think, for ward councillors is really an important one, and there may be the need for a slightly customized approach for each council member depending on what you'd like to see. So what I would ask on that one, if you could leave that with us. I have started some discussions first with the council members. I intend to do that with other staff. I've talked with Ian and Bonnie about looking at how can we improve that experience for you and ultimately to the customer.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. He was basing on relationship developed over many years, Councillor Kerwin. Yeah. The customer service is, and the CRM system is good at managing issues. My question is have we thought about applying it in terms of systems performance and responsiveness of the system? Example, do you get reports that tell you, the average age from open to close? As far as or completed files from the date that you open it, how long does an issue stay unresolved inside the system, and what are the most issues that take the longest? Are there any areas where the issues take the longest, and how responsive are we as an organization to dealing with the issues when we become aware of them?
I can answer that through you, Mr. Mayor. The system does have the ability to track that. Mm-hmm. Essentially, any field that you see here in front of you, I have the ability to track. So when a call is generated, whether it be a quick call or a service request, mm-hmm. It is time-stamped and date-stamped of the time that it was received. And then once it's eventually closed, it does track all of that. Mm-hmm. So once again, it's not something, I have done it in the past on request. Mm-hmm. So that type of data is available. if that type of information is needed, certainly depending on what it is you need, we can generate that.
I guess more so from the senior management perspective in terms of where are we getting, or where do we need to take a look at directing resources as far as the responding to the customer goes. So there are specific service level agreements in place, and performance against those service level agreements by departments and all of those things, those are in place and those are being measured as part of the performance development discussions. Is that correct? Or Bob, is that?
Yeah, we do have service level agreements with each of the departments. There is an ability to track from open to close for the tickets. It's not as easy to pull that information as we'd like, but we are able to pull it. I think it's quarterly. It takes a bit of time on Jamie's part, but we certainly know when there's hot spots, and we certainly know when things are falling and need to be picked up.
Good. Okay, thank you. The other part that was raised earlier as well is getting these not only from Twitter but from Facebook, because there seems to be all sorts of channels coming into us, and how can we convert those and get them into the system? Have we given any thought to?
We've had several conversations with communications. Right now they're managing all the Twitter and Facebook issues, but they work very closely with us. In 2015 we do need to figure out where is it going to reside and what are the service level expectations. How quickly will we respond to Twitter issues if they are issues? We do right now try to direct people to the after-hours service when we close after 5 o'clock.
Good. Well, and the one good thing about elections is that they keep you busy when you're knocking on doors, and it was the first time that I found that I'd always been reluctant to use the system, but my experience has been very good. So if we can find an easy-to-use app on your cell phone, I think that we'd see a higher level of utilization. I think the system really works well. It's just a case of us building our own confidence level and comfort level in using the system. So I'm going to explore that further myself. Thank you for the presentation. I entertain a motion to receive the presentation and the accompanying report as well. Oh, sorry, David. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't say it.
Just briefly, the presentation today, and you, Jamie, and Bonnie, and your staff, never fails to impress me. It's superb. And what we're doing right now for our new members of council is excellent. And I will say to the clerk, we're going to need more time in committees of the whole. They're not going to start at 1:30, and they're not going to finish at 5. We've seen that before. They go longer than that. Because when you saw what's coming up, to me, we're going to need more meetings more often than meetings that drag on for 7 or 8 hours, or beyond 6 o'clock when we become tired. So when you come forward, and when I see the CAO's presentation, everyone around here making the presentations, you can see what faces us in the next 4 years. It's almost unbelievable, the change in customer service with access and with the use of Twitter, with the use of Facebook, which I was thrown into during the election. But as far as I'm concerned, you do an absolutely superb job. But the issue that was raised was the ward councillor must be kept informed somehow, because there are some issues out there that didn't come into you, but some people needed to have them addressed. So addressing these issues are crucial to the regional councillor, to the mayor, or even to the ward councillor. So the more information we have, the better it is to address the needs of our residents. And you know, we are at a town now of 100,000 people, or very, very close to it. And we will be at the end of this term with all the development that's going to happen. And it's a very sophisticated town now. And I realize that, but thank you from the bottom of my heart. Every time I meet with staff, I come away enlightened.
Thank you. Councillor Vick.
Thank you. Bonnie and Jane, thank you very much for showing me what happens behind the magic curtain. I've sat on the other side of the desk speaking to our customer service staff and on the phone, so now I see what they see. So thank you very much for that. Some of your slides showed a breakdown by ward, the number of concerns that are coming in, the frequency of concerns, et cetera. Yes, that's one of them right there. And I think it'd be very useful, not just for myself, but obviously for other councillors too, if we were able to get this on a monthly or a quarterly basis? Since you're collecting the data already, so we're not really asking for anything in addition, but if we'd be able to have that that information, I realize some of this is seasonal. And you also had a map that came up, very interesting, about parking enforcement. Do we also have one that would come, so it flags where the parking enforcement issues are? It'd be very helpful to know where that is in our wards. But we also get in a lot of complaints regarding speeding. Do we track that data too when people say at this time on this street, etc.? Because I know I've had, and I've directed residents also to contact customer service, complain about that. They complain to York Region Police about that. But do we have data that's tracking on what streets are more problematic than others, where we get more and more complaints about that?
Do you want me?
Yep. Go ahead, Jamie.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do, I just put it up there, you can see the call type that we do have. We do track requests for speed control, and that's for folks that would call in or contact us who are asking for either speed signage or speed bumps, rumble strips, and I'm not familiar with all the verbiage for it. We do have that, and we do have protocols in place in how to help direct the person that contacts us to do that. We do track it in that sense. We do also advise them if it is an immediate concern for York Regional Police to be involved with that, because of the fact that there's a safety aspect of it. So.
Right, but so would I be able to get the data, for example, even though you're redirecting it, the initial call came in for speed control, to let me know what streets, what time of the year, things like that?
So once again, similar to Councillor Hempin's question, as long as I took out personal information, I can provide
I'm not looking for the personal information, I'm looking for trends.
Yep, no, and that's absolutely fine. Just want to clarify that portion. We can do that, and I can do that for any number of different call types. We just gave you sort of a snapshot of some of the ones that are the highest trend, but yes, we can do that.
Okay, so just consider that a request now from Ward 1, and I'm sure the other councillors would find that information useful too.
Thank you. Mr. Sheldon?
Mr. Mayor, if you could leave that with the Commissioner and staff to work out what is available for council members, and maybe on a quarterly basis we could provide the information as indicated.
Good. Okay, thank you. Now, since there's no one else in the queue, I'll ask for a motion to receive the presentation and the report as well. Councillor Plumley, Councillor Kerwin, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay, what we got next? User fees licensing number 7. That's page 32. Councillor Sponga moving the recommendations, seconded by Councillor Broom-Plumley. You don't wish to speak to it, Councillor? As the mover, as the seconder?
I didn't pull this.
Okay.
Sorry, I meant to pull the final one.
Okay, it's next. All those in favor? That is carried. Item number 8, fees for planning. We have the recommendations. It's page 38.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Twinney. Wish to speak to it, Councillor Sponga, as the mover?
Briefly, you addressed my question earlier in the presentation on the fees by, I believe, it was, I can't remember whom, but you asked the question whether the fees would...
That was the Commissioner of...
Right. No, actually, the question was to the CAO, whether all fees under the pricing policy, pricing service policy would be reviewed. And I was looking specifically to OPA fees, and I understand those will be reviewed as well. Thank you.
Good. And I think the issue... Sorry?
At that level of philosophy,
yes.
The subsidy level should
be... Right.
Correct. That will be reflected in the next update.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the issue there is around the consumer benefit. The consumer's 100% benefit there. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. That's it. Okay. Yes, please. Yep. Well, before we'll.
Just a question.
Yep. Let's clarify that.
It's just actually.
You're speaking. There you go.
Just a question on regarding the difference between the sign or fence bylaw variances. One, it says within the jurisdiction of staff, and the other one is the appeal to the variance. When it says within the jurisdiction of staff, so it means if somebody wants to appeal it, what's the difference between those two again? Sorry.
Madam Commissioner.
The reason I'm asking because I had a resident bring something up, and it's just so I just wondered what, and it seemed something minor that they wanted to do, but they had to go through variance, which is a huge expense. What would involve the staff?
Mrs. Moore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just, are you on page 43? I am. I'm sorry, I'm just...
Yeah, 43, like there's the one that's by giving jurisdiction of staff and one that's
Okay, now maybe the clerk could correct me if I'm giving you incorrect information, but staff were delegated with some authority to permit, and I'm going by memory, it might be on a fence, let's say, an additional foot.
Right, and that's what I'm asking. So when does that, who determines if it gets deferred to staff or whether it should go to variance?
It's my understanding that staff look at it first and then determine, okay, is that something within our authority or does it need to go to the committee? But I'd look to the director just to confirm that information.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, that is correct, through you, Mr. Mayor. And what I could do is perhaps follow up with the councillor by email, just setting out the criteria. I believe is all set out in the bylaw with regard to the staff versus the variance committee. But I can just clarify that through email.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Item number 11, interim appropriations. Okay. 12, okay. What other items do we have left? We can. Item number 21. Yep. Number 21, is that an action item or is that was pulled item?
No, just was pulled.
It was a pulled item. Okay. So let's finish off the consent items then, and we'll go to item number 21, which was the procurement, and that's with respect to the Tom Taylor Trail West.
Recommendations.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Councillor Bassans? Okay. Councillor Sponga, speaking to the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to get some clarification for staff. First of all, my understanding with this item came before council before. The budget allocated, the budget to be allocated to it was considerably different. My understanding was there's going to be close to a third split. And I just wonder what has changed from the conservation and the regional perspective, if anything. It seems like the cost has increased considerably from the last time it was in front of us.
Mr. Nohammer? Yeah.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Spong, I can't really speak to what constituted the earlier budget, other than to say that it was at a level of approximately $360,000, which is insufficient to complete the project, given the additional items that were identified in the form of lighting, in the form of a bridge that was required, and other elements that came forward as a result of a public information center that was required after the project was originally approved. We've tried to be comprehensive in the report in terms of the rationale and the reasons contributing to all of the elements that led to the increased cost. So I can answer questions around that, but I can't directly answer your question about the proportion of funds between the town, region, and LRCA, other than to say that we have successfully obtained funding in the amount of $166,000 from the region, and a smaller amount from the LSRCA.
Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Shelton, do you have anything you could add to that?
Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think With the change in staff, we might have to do a bit of research on that, but I do not recall the Conservation Authority being in for a third. That's
Not a third, perhaps, and I might be wrong in terms of the split, but I thought that definitely the regional portion was to be, in terms of percentages, higher, and the Conservation Authority are expected a little bit more.
Yeah, the Conservation Authority, I think you're fortunate to really secure any funding from them these days over the last little while. With the region, as I say, we'd have to do some research on it. My understanding, Peter, this takes us to the Kane Parkway. There's also the Kane Parkway that we have been able to get the region to agree to a contribution as part of their the York-Durham system twinning project through there. So I'm not sure if that is something you're thinking of as well, but we could put together whatever information we have between now and council if you wish on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My next question was, how is the timing of this capital project going to sequence the regional trunk? And I believe that the funding for the funding you were referring, the second set of funding you were referring to from the region was allocated, was through that project, correct?
Mr. Shelton?
I'll ask the Commissioner or the Director to speak to that part in terms of the Kane Park.
Ms. Prudhomme?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I can answer the previous question as well if you would like me to. Actually, the $360,000 in the original budget for this project was based on a very preliminary design that was done in 2012. Now, that design included only an asphalt trail with nothing else. So it was just basically the base material, the aggregates, compaction, and paving on top. Since then, the project has increased in scope, and we were asked, because it's going to be part of the Lake-to-Lake Trail now, we worked with the LSRCA. We require a bridge. We require abutments. We also require bioswales, and that is why we were able to apply to the LSRCA for some funding, and the CAO is right in saying that it's very difficult to get that kind of funding, and we were successful in getting that. We were expecting to get more than $166,000 from the region, and unfortunately their program was spread out more across more projects than they had expected. They had a higher intake, and our portion of that was decreased somewhat. So I think that's what you were asking about. Is that correct?
Well, that's the first question I asked. And being that this is part of the Link-to-Link, so is there, and we're not getting the level of funding that we expected from the region, and the cost is double. Is there an urgency to move forward with this project because of syncing it with the whatever it is, the sewer trunk that the region is putting in? Is that why we're moving ahead?
Actually, the sewer trunk isn't going ahead until 2 years from now. And we did check the route of the sewer trunk, and it's not encroaching with this trail.
Okay, so then this will take us to the Kane Parkway. So the portion from the Kane Parkway south then will be done 2 years later in conjunction with the, okay, is there
That's absolutely correct, yeah.
So is there a reason why we're moving forward now and we're not aligning the two projects together?
So you're suggesting we delay the current project?
I don't know yet whether
Okay.
I should or not. I'm asking a question.
Okay. Ms. Prudhomme?
Well, it was in the 2013 budget, and it's been carried over for a few years now, and we only expect it to cost more if we wait longer. And it is a piece of trail that we really need to do as part of the Lake-to-Lake, and was directed by council in a report back in 2013. So now the project has been tendered, and we have 60 days to award the tender. If we don't award it, we need to change it significantly when we go back to tender again. I mean, it's going to be council's prerogative if you want to delay the work. That's not a problem. But it could cause issues with the design, and we have put in some money for the design already, and everything's set to go.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll tell you why I have some concerns. First of all, council approval was based on the 2012 costing. So that's why council, based on the $300-some thousand, we moved forward on that. The second one, I don't believe that at that point we were ever told there would be a gap, that we would be doing some of this work now, and then the remainder of the work 2 years later, when we, in conjunction with the region and the sewer trunk. For myself, considering the fact that a lot of, I also would like, my next question was going to be, to what extent are we engaging Andrew Street again in terms of construction, removing culverts and William, where I'm not even sure, I'm going to raise it under new business. I'm still looking for that information report on whether Andrew Street is completed yet or not. So those are all serious concerns I have, and I'm not really, I don't know if I'm prepared today to move forward with something that it's going to cost us twice as much as what we thought a year ago. And I just would have liked to have a little bit, I'm not saying I'm opposed, I just would have liked to have some time to consult on this project a little bit longer to get some more information.
Okay. Who seconded the motion? Okay. Would you like to speak to that as a seconder, Councillor?
I concur.
Okay. Okay. Regional Councillor?
The motion, the recommendations were moved, or was there?
The recommendations were moved, I believe, right?
All right, yeah. I'm just going to speak in favor of the recommendations in the project. I think we've all heard through the election, and I certainly, the conversations I had with people, is that they're extremely proud of our trails. They're probably the most utilized asset we have in this town, and at a dollar per utilization ratio, if such a thing existed, I'm sure it's the best value we've got in this town. This area is our most heavily trafficked and heavily volumed area. There's been a lot of talk from residents that I've been in touch with about wanting to see this paved and lit and done properly. It creates a loop around the lake as well. It helps the lake-to-lake route, but I think that's a minor consideration, frankly. I don't see this as it being done in two phases. This was always, in my mind, a standalone project. Another was a different project. We often do pieces of trails as we go, as we're doing in the Northwest Quadrant. So I would really, and you know, the price is higher than we anticipated. This happens sometimes. Occasionally it goes the other way, but often prices are higher than we anticipated, and I think it's correct that it's only going to be higher. I mean, if it's only going to be higher, I guess the only thing I would say is if we don't intend to do it at all for maybe a decade or more, but otherwise, I really hope we move forward with this. Again, I think many of us campaigned on a strong trails program, and I think they're immensely popular with the public, and I think this is a piece that will be a vast improvement to the system, and I've certainly had a lot of people ask when is it going to be completed. So I hope we stay the course and get it done and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Commissioner? Sorry. Madam Director.
Thanks. The only other issue that I would put on the table for Council's deliberations is that we also would be losing the regional funding and the LSRCA funding if we don't go ahead with the project at this time, and would have to reapply to the programs in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga, final comments, please?
Yeah, well, question. To what extent then, what do we mean by the removal of the culverts on Andrew Street in William and the replacement of the bridge and the Narrows, at the Narrows? We have a map in front of us. Maybe you can point us. Is there going to be additional construction on Andrew Street and William Street?
Ms. Purdom?
On William Street. Well, I was leaning towards a question regarding why are we replacing the culverts? Is that part of the question as well?
No, why? I'm asking whether there will be additional construction on Andrew Street and William Street as a result of removal of the culvert and the replacement of the bridge at the Narrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's an encroachment there. I could show where the culvert is on the drawing if you like.
Maybe if you could outline the project and how far it's going, and then where the culverts are, that would help give us a...
The project starts here and follows this line down here. The construction itself terminates here. Then we have some extra lights for pedestrian lighting that will bridge between the end of this trail and the other Tom Taylor trail over here. And the culvert work would be in this area here. That's right.
And so the report speaks directly of removal of culverts at William, Andrew Street, along Andrew Street and William Street. So those are the culverts you're referring to, or is that just the bridge you're referring to?
That's the bridge. I'm sorry. I meant to say the bridge is going to be...
And the culverts? Which culverts are there then?
There are existing culverts there now that need to be removed and replaced with a bridge in the same location.
Okay, so the culverts are not the culverts that are flanking where the trail meets Andrew Street and William Street?
I can double check that for you, Councillor Sponga,
Well,
and
that
get
would
back
make
to
a
you
big
for sure.
difference in how am I going to support it or not, to be honest with you, Rachel. Okay, you can come back. There's time between now and council. I will say this much, and I agree with John that our residents really value our trail system, and they really support our investments that we make in our trails. But my concern is this area has been under construction now for several years, for at least 2 years, especially the area around the culvert and the bridge. If you recall, it wasn't too long ago that we had a pond there. The pond is being removed by the region, and that creek is being put in, and now we're going back in to dig again. That has been a construction site for 2 years. It's not fair to the residents. And then if we have to continue on in 2 years, pick it up again, and we still haven't addressed, and we don't even know what is going to happen to the Kane Parkway south of that at this point. There hasn't been the discussion. For me, it seems a little bit, I understand the issue around the funding, but my understanding was that the only reason why we're moving ahead with it now was because of the lake-to-lake route, but not to the cost of $600,000. I find that a little, I would have to get my head around that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll be supporting the recommendations as well, and it's largely because we've become accustomed to taking on portions of the Tom Taylor Trail as we go forward. I think this is an important portion to progress with, and then the construction and the force main will be more along the Kane Parkway. So I think it would be in our best interest to get this leg of the construction done as soon as we could, and particularly while the funding is available. So I'll be supporting the recommendations as well. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it carries. Okay, so that deals with item number 21. I think we still have one consent item, and that goes back to item number 11, which was pulled, and that is with respect to the interim appropriations. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations or a recommendation? Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Regional Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that this be referred to the next committee of the whole and ask staff to bring back more information. The information in particular I'm looking for is all examples of trucks that have been sold in the last 3 years, what year they were, what mileage they were, and what they were sold for. Because part of making a decent judgment on this is what kind of value we're getting at the end of the day. I have to say I certainly couldn't support it at this point, and may not be able to after the information, but I'm open to getting more information. I just have a real problem with that. You know, after we received the information on our asset replacement scheduling for vehicles and equipment that shows light trucks and vans at 10 years and light and heavier ones maybe around 7 years. And then I see in here that there's, you know, my eyes aren't that great, but 2 09s they were bought in the middle of the year in 09 that have 38,000 and 49,000 kilometers. The information we've been given at this point is maintenance hours increasing. I don't want to get into trying to figure out every vehicle, et cetera, but I've felt for a while, and I've raised this in the past, I think staff might recall, I feel that I'd like to understand our policy more clearly, and I'd like us to stick to the policy more clearly, unless there are really extenuating circumstances. So when I see operational issues for staff resulting in equipment failures on one up above, that sounds more robust. Now, maybe there wasn't enough information, but then I even go to, I'm doubting that we can have that many exceptions or that many exceptions to the rule in 1 year, or is it, you know, it's not a rule. But I'm just finding, on first glance, regardless of the policy or the policy or practice or written practice, that seeing vehicles of 08s and 09s with 60, 70, 30, 40,000 kilometers, you know, I think that's, I know these are work vehicles, but my vehicle's an 06 with 150, and that's not much. And I'm sure there's probably examples around here beyond that. And I just think we could be my gut says we could be a little tighter here. We could extend them, and I'd like to see us at least get more information. But I'd also like to say that I'd like to see us seriously look at. I mean, when you look at this old policy that's given to us, it actually talked about the end about possible adjustments by, even extending another year or two. And you talk to some people in the plowing industry in the private sector and other industries, and they have some vehicles that are much older with much, much, much higher mileage. So maybe the other option, so I won't go on about it except to say I'm generally not comfortable, and I certainly would want more information before I could support it. And I'd like to see us, in general, move to becoming, trying to extend the asset life. But if we're not getting significant dollars for some of these vehicles that are only 09s with 35,000 kilometers on it, then we should just be hanging on to them. And I know somebody's going to say, well, the maintenance gets tricky. And I don't want to be in the spot as a councillor debating each truck. I'm just sharing my opinion that I feel that we could probably extend these lives somewhat more. And I believe, and I'm sure I'll be told I'm wrong, that I think we could do it and save money in the long run, even though there's a bit more maintenance cost. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and the motion is to receive more information. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sponga is the seconder.
I welcome the opportunity to get some more information on this item as well.
So eventually, I think what the request is for more information, and then to review the merits of changing the policy that we currently have, and the exceptions that apply to it. So this is a deferral to the next committee of the whole. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And my apologies for bouncing around on the agenda. We were trying to accommodate the deputants as much as possible. So I think we're now to item number 19, which is the action items. Members of council will have received an email that was the product of the discussions that I've had with individuals. So I'd entertain a motion with respect to the committee appointments that we do need to make, and I believe that motion that would reflect the Appointment Committee, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, the JCC, Heritage Newmarket, and the Public Library. I know that there's been interest expressed in other committees, but particularly I think Smart Commute, the Chamber of Commerce is looking for us to have a municipal representative there as well. So I would ask for a motion with respect to those committees. And I believe BIA, Mr. Brower, is that statutory? I think that is a statutory committee, or is that a bylaw requirement to have municipal representatives?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's a bylaw establishing a BIA, and I believe the composition asks for up to 2 members of council. I don't have that information in front of me, but I believe it's up to 2 members of council.
Okay, up to. So I would entertain a motion then to make these appointments subject to any adjustments that council would deem appropriate. So Councillor Kerwin, then just for clarity, then the appointment committee that we've seen the interest expressed in would be myself, Councillor Twinney, and Councillor Bassans. Accessibility Advisory Committee is Councillor Bassans. The JCC would be Councillor Twinney, Councillor Sponga, Councillor Hempen. The Heritage Committee would be Councillor Hempen. The Library Board, Councillor Vague, Councillor Broom-Plumley, and Regional Councillor if necessary. And BIA would be Councillor Sponga, and the Smart Commute, Central York, would be Councillor Broom-Plumley. To be clear, that's your motion? Okay, is there a second?
Additional clauses are requested.
And the additional clauses as well. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Twinney. Any discussion on that? Regional Councillor.
So I guess I don't know if I was the only one, but I think there might have been one more if necessary. Can we make an appointment like that to the clerk, I guess?
Oh, okay.
Sounds very unusual.
Well, I don't think we're required to appoint 3. I think we can appoint only 2. And so
regarding the BIA?
No, regarding the Library Board.
Oh,
that's the only one is the as necessary.
That's the only one.
I believe it was 3.
It's been our practice to do 3, but I'm not sure that we're required to do 3. I think the only requirement is that we are not to take a majority on the Library Board.
So what I would say is I think we should have 3 on the Library Board. I'll be honest, heavily engaged in regional committees. I'm going to be on it's not here, but also on the Viva Task Force, which is a demanding committee, et cetera. So I'd welcome another volunteer, but in the absence of one, I'll let my name stand.
Take the library board? Okay. All right.
Friendly amendment there?
Okay. Councillor Sponga has a friendly amendment. Okay, good.
Wednesdays 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Is that a good time for you? Maybe not then.
Okay. So as it stands, and you might be able to check your conflicts before it gets to council? Okay. All right, so that's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. I thank you for stepping up to that. And what else have we got? Have we done everything now, Mr.? Oh, okay. All right, there's no correspondence to be reviewed. Regional reports, if we can limit that to a few minutes. Regional councillor, none. Okay. Any notices of motion? Being none. Any motions? None. New business. Councillor Sponga.
Really, three quick items, actually four. First of all, we just dealt with some appointment committees and referred to a couple of other committees, but there is one very informal committee, and it's the Historical Society. We're not required to appoint a councillor. It's by request of the Historical Society. I have been appointed in the past, and I know there has actually been a request by the Historical Society to appoint someone else, and I am totally in agreement with the Historical Society, so I just wonder if we can deal with it now, or you want to deal with it under committee appointments?
After the review?
Yeah. Would that be the appropriate
Yes, part
time?
of the review. Yeah, part of the review might be a good consideration, or unless someone wishes to. I don't think that that's a committee that provides our support. So it's an invitation for the Historical Society.
And Councillor Kerwin's been invited.
Councillor Kerwin, do you wish to be appointed then? Okay.
I'll move that.
All right. And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Kerwin might be nice. All right. Regional councillor.
He has a story.
All right. Any further discussion on that appointment? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried.
He's a
Okay.
councillor with historical significance. So it makes sense.
All right.
Okay, quickly, two other reports, and I know there's been some challenges. I had asked the last council term for two information reports. One is around the completion of Andrew Street, and the other one was around the enforcement of the train whistle ban. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner, if we
Or
could.
Mr. Sheldon, where does that fit in the? Okay, Madam Commissioner.
Both.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a joint initiative between Commissioner Nohammer and my commission as well. And it was captured in the outstanding list. I believe Bob mentioned it. And so all of it's wrapped together, Councillor, so something will be coming back.
May I? Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think there were two separate motions. There was one motion that was seconded actually by Regional Council, and it was to look at a number of items over a long term, including the crosswalk at Water Street and so forth.
Correct.
That related to GO Metrolinx operation.
Mhm.
There was just a request for an information report to be circulated to members of council in regards to our ability to enforce the whistle ban now under the present whistle ban that we have in place. The whistle ban is now from 6 a.m. until, I believe, 11 p.m., but there are now trains using the whistle at 5:30 on a regular basis. And residents had asked whether we had the ability to enforce that ban or not, and that was the information report I was seeking.
Correct. And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I believe the whistle ban that you had referenced was a very old order. I think you even referenced it yourself. It was back in, I don't know, 40s or 50s.
That's the information report I'm looking for, Anita. Thank you.
Okay, so we will try and wrap that up. It has been taking us some time digging information up.
I'm sure.
To find that
That's great. Thank you.
order.
Good. And the Andrew Street?
If I could just speak to the
Mr.
Andrew
Nonhammer,
Street
yep.
one. So we are working on the Andrew Street information report for you, Councillor Sponga, and just with a number of competing priorities, we still do intend to get that back for you.
Can I ask for a time frame this time?
Well, we're working on it now, so it's probably in 2 or 3 weeks we should
Thank
have
you.
a draft.
That's good enough. Thank you so much.
So a month?
The
So
other
let's
one,
say a month?
Yeah.
a month is good. Thank you. At
January.
least I know. I won't bug you for a month now. The last one is, I know that this is a bit a hard issue to sort of pinpoint because it has to do with the feds and Canada Post. But I have received several communication through Facebook, through email, through phone calls about what's going to happen in the older portion of town and the established neighborhoods. How will Canada Post determine where the community boxes will be installed? I think it's especially an area of concern in the older part of town where there really is no, the properties are right at the street line. And I was somewhat refreshed to get a correspondence from Jason Unger today that there is now a process of consultation with the municipalities. I'm just wondering, will we be receiving a report that outlines how that consultation takes place through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner? Whether the Planning Department will be identifying areas, or how is that all going to sort out?
Mr. Neuheimer?
Yes, I'm afraid I didn't bring that information report with me today, but certainly the information report does spell out some of the questions that you're asking, Councillor Sponga. But if necessary, and if there are further implementation questions or more specifics, we can bring forward more information to follow up, in particular with respect to how Canada Post will be citing the locations.
Okay. And maybe through Mr. Mayor to the CAO, would there be an opportunity, Bob, would there be an opportunity, Bob, to either through communication, communicate that fact that there's communication occurring now between the municipality and Canada Post, and that there's not just a one-sided communication from Canada Post, but that the municipality is actually engaged?
Mr. Sheldon?
We could commit to putting updates or something, some informational piece on our town page and our website.
Could just be direction to staff?
Yep, direction would be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's it.
My understanding is that Canada Post has asked for feedback, specific feedback from individuals in terms of any limitations that they might have. So the dialogue with Canada Post would be very helpful. And I understand that's underway? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, Councillor Kerwin, new business?
Yeah, just to reinforce that, the location of where they put those super mailboxes or the small mailboxes, very, very important in my ward, okay? You know, when you put them somewhere, you have people who walk their dogs, and the dogs urinate on those posts, and they defecate. The litter, it's no one wants them near their place, to be quite honest about it. So we've got to be very sensitive. We've got to be very careful. And then people stop, and you get the carbon monoxide fumes and so forth. So I want input on where the mailboxes are located in Ward 2. The other thing is to our Commissioner, Lamar is a much-traveled route, and I have involved the police, but it's not happening. We need to look at an elevated speed hump, not a regular speed hump, but a new one that I can show you that would slow the traffic on Lamar. It is a school area. The kids race there between the school and Leslie Street, and it's been a problem for a long period of time. I'd like to resolve it in this term. The other item, thanks to Mr. Sheldon, years ago, we do this now. We put in the curb cuts with the lines on it which indicate Braille, so a person with a stick can handle that. I saw innovative designs in Toronto on Sunday, all through the Danforth area, through Greektown, and that's the metal plate, which is more effective and more efficient. It's manufactured in the United States of America, and I think when we do sidewalks in the future, that could be the way they go. I suggest that. The other thing is I suggest now when there's no snow on the ground, we get as many leaves off the streets, curbs, as possible. In Toronto, once again on Sunday, their people were out removing the leaves from the streets so they don't block the water management on our streets. So if it doesn't snow for the next week, there are areas where there's heavy concentration of leaves on the road at the corners that have all washed down there, and they are plugging the stormwater system. So I would like to see, by manual they were doing that, by the guy sweeping and with a shovel putting it in the truck. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. With respect to speed controls, there is a report coming forward, I believe, that's talking about traffic management and speed controls. Do we know what the timing is for that? An approximate timing as yet? Maybe we should wait until we get settled on our strategic priorities and then how that might work its way out. But I did see that was listed in the presentation, so that's good. Okay. We do not have a requirement for a closed session, and we're not having any public hearings. Motion to adjourn, I believe. We've covered all the business on the agenda. Okay. Councillor Kerwin, seconded by Councillor Broom-Plumley. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. That's carried.
Here's the agenda. Listen, right now, you can run me over to my place. We'll pick up Erica. I'll be changed and we'll pick up Roxanne and go down.
Oh, Rox is not going.
Well, she's not.
No, Bob's coming along with us.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah.
Is Bob ready to go now?
I think so,
Take me over to my house. We'll
Yep.
pick up Erica. I'll get my suit on. And are you
Okay.
going to change it for the
I'm
time?
not going to change.
Well, then I'll go like
Just
this.
like this.